Chapter 643. French cuisine was all about delicacy. Even if there was a slight difference in the texture, he would be able to tell right away. Different chefs had their own understanding of delicacies. Therefore, the same dish would taste different when cooked by different chefs. There was no doubt that his taste in delicacies was still better than hers. He was extremely picky. Therefore, no matter how he purposely picked something that he thought was delicious and brought it to her mouth. However, when it came to Yun Shirshir, whose taste was a level lower than his, he completely fell for it. It was delicious. It was as delicious as Yu Yu's cooking. However, in terms of taste, Yu Yu's cooking was still better. French cuisine was exquisite and delicious, but it was not targeted. The person who understood her taste the most was Yu Yu. After a period of trial and error, the little guy had figured out what his mommy's taste was. Therefore, he would cater to her taste for every delicious meal. Therefore, she couldn't help but mutter, "It's delicious, but it's still not as good as Yu Yu's cooking." "Yu Yu knows how to cook?" Muyaja raised his handsome eyebrows slightly. He was obviously a little surprised. Yes. Yes. As Yun Shirshir spoke, she suddenly glared at him vigilantly. "Don't even think about it. Yu Yu only cooks for me. He's my personal chef." She looked a little smug. Muyaja couldn't help but pinch her cheeks affectionately. It was quite textured. Yun Shirshir avoided his action and rubbed her belly. "I'm still hungry. Feed me again." Muyaja couldn't help but laugh. His gaze swept across the dining table and landed on the fresh oyster. He scooped it up with a spoon. The soft and tender flesh made him drool. Yun Shirshir waited expectantly for his next move. Muyaja, on the other hand, continued to stuff it into his mouth. Yun Shirshir was stunned and froze for a moment. Didn't he say that he was going to feed her after it entered his mouth? What's wrong with you? Yun Shirshir's eyes were filled with silent accusation as she glared at him unhappily. She had promised to feed him, but in the end, she sent it into her own mouth. Muyaja held the fresh meat between his lips and teeth, not in a hurry to swallow it. He looked back at her indifferently, as if he was silently provoking her. Yun Shirshir was not to be outdone. She held his face and leaned over, trying to snatch the delicious food from his mouth. She pressed her lips against the corner of his lips and bit down with her pearly white teeth, snatching the fresh meat into her mouth. Delicious. She was a feast for the eyes. She was truly a feast for the eyes. No matter what a beautiful person did, it was always pleasing to the eye. Yun Shirshir was like that. Muyaja took advantage of the situation and kissed her. The tip of his tongue flicked across her lips that were covered in sauce and deeply invaded. This could be considered as helping each other in times of need. It was the most intimate way for people to be together. He carelessly and unscrupulously dotted her lips. Yun Shirshir was so shocked by his sudden invasion that she couldn't help but lean back. However, he didn't allow her to dodge. His palm clasped the back of her neck tightly, forcing her body to stick to him. He wasn't hungry at first. However, looking at her, he vaguely felt a little hungry. The tip of his tongue gently swept across every inch of her lips, licking those alluring pink lips clean. Not a single bit was left out. It was as if he was seriously tasting the delicious food. Thus, he used this method to feed her the delicious food mouth to mouth. At first, she was still a little uncomfortable, as if she wasn't used to such an intimate way of feeding. Thus, she reached out to take the knife and fork from his hand, wanting to do it herself. However, Muyaja's hand slightly avoided her movements. Chapter 644. She didn't know why, but the originally tasteless meal tasted amazingly delicious in her mouth. Muyaja was an extremely clean freak. He usually didn't like anyone getting close to him. Not to mention mouth to mouth, even if someone touched his hand, he would feel a sense of disgust from the bottom of his heart. However, with this woman he actually longed for this kind of closeness. Mouth-to-mouth feeding should have been the most primitive way of feeding. Newborn babies didn't have the ability to move, so mothers would feed food into their children's mouths in this way. However, even many couples found it difficult to adapt to this kind of method. Just now, the fresh food was in his mouth, staining his lips and teeth. However, this woman naturally snatched the food from his mouth, without the slightest disgust in her eyes. Such intimacy caused a warm feeling to grow in the depths of his heart. He seemed to be infatuated with this woman's closeness. This feeling of longing was something that he had never felt before. At that moment, something that had long been frozen seemed to be deeply touched. He couldn't help but yearn for more of this kind of closeness. Therefore, when Yin Shirshir reached out to snatch the knife and fork in his hand, he avoided it. How could he allow his fun to be interrupted? Yin Shirshir was a little annoyed. She glared at him and said seriously, "I can do it myself. I don't need you to feed me." "I'll feed you." "No, I'll do it myself." "I'll feed you." "Hey, I'll feed you." Yin Shirshir was so angry that she frowned. How could this man be so hateful? He even deprived her of the freedom to eat. Muyaja found that her coquettish and slightly annoyed expression was actually a little cute. He liked her expression very much. Not eating? Muyaja saw that she was frozen in his arms and didn't move, so he asked. Yin Shirshir seemed to be angry and didn't want to pay attention to him. She seemed to be acting coquettishly, but also seemed to be sulking. The man lowered his head slightly and asked, "Are you full?" Yin Shirshir pursed her lips tightly and seemed to ignore him. "Since you're full, it's your turn to feed me." As Muyaja spoke, his warm palms slowly extended into her skirt, following her soft and tender skin to explore the mysterious area. Yin Shirshir was so shocked that she hurriedly stopped him. Somewhat embarrassed and annoyed, she said, "What are you doing?" "Eat you. You. What are you thinking about all day long?" Yin Shirshir felt angry and amused at the same time. "I was thinking about how to eat you." Yin Shirshir was completely speechless. She only said gloomily, "But I'm not full yet." Muyaja raised his eyebrows slightly, sucking on another piece of steak as he inched closer to her face. But this time, she couldn't care less about it. He was simply too hungry. Once a person was hungry, they couldn't care less. Thus, she gently hugged his shoulders and took the food from his mouth, swallowing it happily. He tirelessly used such a complicated method to feed her again and again. And Yin Shirshir gradually accepted the way he fed her. Like an obedient kitten, she nestled in the man's arms and took the food from his mouth calmly. In the process, more than half of the delicious food on the table was quickly gone. Muyaja sucked on a mouthful of foie gras. After feeding her, he took the opportunity to kiss her again. Chapter 645. He hugged her to sit on his body and deepen the kiss. Yin Shirshir still had some sense. She realized that they were in the restaurant's private room, and she didn't know when someone would break in. So she couldn't help but feel nervous. "Don't be here. Someone will come in later." "No." He coaxed her with his lips against hers. This was his world. Without his orders and summons, who would dare to step in here? Her apprehension was therefore entirely superfluous. Yin Shirshir couldn't resist and could only let him kiss her deeper. It had to be said that Muyaja's kissing skills weren't exquisite at first. When he first kissed her, he took her by force. He was overbearing, but he was also a little clumsy. But now his kissing skills were superb and exquisite, and he was already on her finger. She wasn't his opponent at all. After a lingering kiss, she felt as if she was about to turn into a pool of spring water in his arms. He didn't even take the next step. Just by kissing like this, she felt as if there was an electric current running up her spine, and her heart was beating fast. Yin Shirshir's shoulders couldn't help trembling slightly and she shivered. She couldn't help but reach out her hand to resist his attack. Muyaja, however, took the opportunity to kiss her jade-like fingertips and peck them lightly. A numbness instantly spread from her fingertips to her heart. Then he lifted her chin with his slender fingers, lowered his eyes and kissed her on the lips, twisting and rubbing against her. Muyaja hugged her waist and stood up with her in his arms. She let out a cry of surprise, and by the time he came back to his senses, she was already in an ambiguous position with her body pressed tightly against his. It was so ambiguous that it was unreasonable. The temperature in the room suddenly rose. Muyaja pecked her lips and whispered in her ear, "Shirshir, stay with me." His voice was clear, deep, and extremely magnetic, but inadvertently revealed an unprecedented pampering. He said that he wanted her to be with him. He gave her the whole world. His whole world. Yin Shirshir's face couldn't help but heat up a little. She slowly nodded and softly said, "N," which could be considered a happy agreement. Okay, be together. She would give him the whole world. Her whole world. There was another private room in the private room. The bathroom, bed, sofa, everything was fully equipped, just like a dreamy suite. Muyaja carried her to the sofa and carefully placed her on it. It was as if she was an extremely fragile treasure. His gentle movements made her feel as if she was in a dream. It was as if she had never been so gently doted on by a man before. Could it be a dream? Yunshishir was inexplicably worried about personal gains and losses. She was scared witless. He was afraid that everything in front of him was just a dream. When the dream was shattered, he woke up. Yunshishir was in a daze. She couldn't help but reach out her hand and caress his handsome face. Her slender fingers caressed every inch of his extraordinary features. It was unbelievably real. It was not a dream. Her fingertips couldn't help but tremble slightly. Muyaja held her hand and kissed it gently. Then their fingers intertwined and his body slowly covered hers. In this position, he entered her. There was no aggressive attack, no forceful taking. His movements were gentler than any other time. He cherished her. He couldn't bear to hurt her. He wanted her to clearly feel how wonderful it was to make love with him. In the aftertaste of love, she gently closed her eyes and lay in his arms. She rested her head on his warm chest and wrapped her fingers around the necklace on her collarbone. The diamond embedded in the pendant was cut into the shape of a beautiful shooting star. It was exquisite, noble, and elegant. Chapter 646. It was so beautiful. Yunshishir's eyes were curved, and her eyes were bright as if she was smiling. She liked the pendant so much that she couldn't bear to part with it. She didn't hide her love for the pendant at all. Seeing that she seemed to really like it, he was very happy. Minyu, this kid, was not bad sometimes when he came up with ideas. Muyaja wrapped one arm around her body, lowered his head, and kissed her gently between her eyebrows. Yunshishir pursed her lips and smiled shyly. Her fair, jade-like face was pink and tender. She was obviously shy, and the shallow dimples on her cheeks made her look a little lovey-dovey. Her dimples were very beautiful. They were shallow and small, and when she smiled, they were too sweet. Muyaja couldn't help but kiss her dimples with infatuation. He really liked her naive look. She was lively and fragrant. She was charming and enchanting. She was clearly such a tender and pure beauty, but her bones seemed to exude the most primitive temptation of a woman, like a charm. He even suspected that this woman must have been a disaster in her previous life. She was born in ancient times and deserved to be a demon concubine, who bewitched the emperor. Looking at her lovely appearance, Muyaja's throat moved, and his lower abdomen faintly tightened again. No matter how much he wanted this woman, he could never get enough of her. Yunshishir had no idea what kind of deep water the man beside her was in at this moment. And she also didn't know that this man loved her dearly and was trying hard to suppress the vigorous lust in his body. She suddenly looked up and smiled. She thought for a moment and asked carefully, "Muyaja, I want to ask you a question." "Je." Muyaja suddenly said a word, but Yunshishir was a little stunned. She didn't understand the meaning of the word. Muyaja saw her stunned expression and couldn't help but reach out to touch her nose. He laughed and said, "Little fool, you don't have to call my name." When he said that, Yunshishir was smart enough to understand the meaning of his words. She blushed and asked tentatively, "Je." Her voice was soft and gentle, but her one word was enough to melt his bones. It was just a single syllable, but it was full of killing power. It was as if an electric current was flowing through his limbs and bones. To be able to use this title on him meant that they were the closest people to him. Yunshishir was the first. Her voice was soft, and it was very pleasing to the ears. He liked her calling him that. Thus, Muyaja lightly pecked her lips and requested, "Say it again." Yunshishir pursed her lips. She was obviously a little shy. "Say it again. Je, make it softer." "Sha." Satisfied, Muyaja kissed her on the lips again as if rewarding her. The tip of his tongue traced the contours of her lips lovingly. Yunshishir pushed him away coquettishly. "Hey, why are you like this?" "What?" "I just wanted to ask you a question. Let's talk about it later." Muyaja didn't have the heart to care about other things. He only wanted to taste her beauty and tenderness to his heart's content. Yunshishir saw that the handsome face was unscrupulously pressing down on her, and reached out to block his lips. Can I see Xiao Yichen in the future? She murmured softly. Her face was obviously nervous and pleading. She liked Xiao Yichen very much, and she also felt sorry for this child. Chapter 647. The last time she saw this child at the amusement park, even though they had been estranged for 6 years, she still felt extremely close to him. Mother and son were connected by blood. He was, after all, her flesh and blood. She had not seen this child for 6 years, but her yearning for him had never stopped. That day, when little Yichen complained in front of her that Daddy doesn't want me anymore, her heart had also broken into pieces. Her heart ached for this child. When Yu was young, she studied many books on child psychology. Yu only had her as his mother. He never knew who his father was. When he was in kindergarten, Yu would often ask her if he had a father. Every time this happened, Yin Shishir's heart would ache terribly. She had always worked hard for Yu. He only had her. Without a father, his family was not complete. Thus, she tried her best to create a happy childhood for him. She did not want him to become an emotional orphan. Yu, on the other hand, was sensible and well-behaved. Later, he did not ask about his father. The mother and son depended on each other. With her hard work, Yu did not have a lonely childhood. However, when she saw Xiao Yichen at the amusement park that day, she saw undisguised loneliness in his eyes. Lonely. This child looked very lonely. She was surprised by this turn of events. It was different from Yin Tianyu. From the moment Xiao Yichen was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, he was destined to be doted on. Yu did not have a father. Xiao Yichen, on the other hand, had a father and a mother. Logically speaking, this child should not be so lonely and should have a blissful and wonderful childhood. However, when Yin Shishir saw Xiao Yichen's lonely and empty eyes that day, she felt as if a deep wound had been torn in her heart. The pain was unbearable. He was like a severely injured animal curled up in a corner, licking his wounds alone. It was not that Yin Shishir was not surprised. How did this child survive for the past 6 years? Could it be that Mu Yaja did not love him enough? However, after Yin Shishir thought about it, after understanding Mu Wanru's character, she knew that she wouldn't spend much effort on Xiao Yichen. After all, she wasn't his biological daughter. After all, it was not a piece of meat that fell from his body. When it came to Xiao Yichen, how could he expect Mu Wanru to have any maternal instincts? Did he want Mu Wanru to dote on Xiao Yichen like her own son? Presumably, Mu Wanru was only doing this for Mu Yaja's sake. On the surface, she treated Xiao Yichen like a son, but in reality, children were sensitive and could acutely sense the emotions of adults. It was obvious that Xiao Yichen was not close to Mu Wanru. As for Mu Yaja, he was Xiao Yichen's father. Naturally, he had to play the role of a strict father. In a child's heart, if a mother was a gentle harbor, then a father should be a strict and imposing figure. He should be a great hero. Without a doubt, Mu Yaja was very strict with Xiao Yichen's education. This child was really amazing. She had seen his skills. In the haunted house, his kick in the air was comparable to that of an adult man. Although he was only 6 years old, he already had the bearing of a young man in his every movement. Chapter 648. She wanted to make it up to this child. Mu Yaja caught the pleading and cautious look in Yin Shishir's eyes. He could not help but recall that day at the hospital when Yin Shishir carried Yu away. Xiao Yichen chased after her reluctantly with tears streaming down his cheeks. Sometimes, one's bloodline was a very mysterious thing. Yin Shishir did not know. Mu Yaja, however, knew. It was not that Mu Wanru had not tried to enter Xiao Yichen's heart. She tried to please and dote on Xiao Yichen, but she could not get him close to Mu Wanru from the bottom of his heart. However, although Yin Shishir and Xiao Yichen had only interacted for half a day at most, Xiao Yichen was obviously very concerned about her. This child was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. This was very similar to him. He was the same when he was young. Other than his mother, he was not close to anyone. After his mother passed away, he sealed his heart. As for Xiao Yichen, other than in front of him, he seemed to be as cold as frost when interacting with others. He was not close to anyone. Even Mu Sheng, who loved him to the bone, kept a distance from the little lad. He sealed himself in his own world. He was very strict with Xiao Yichen. When Xiao Yichen was only 4 years old, He threw him into the special training camp and underwent hellish training from a young age. The child was in awe of him. Yet he yearned to be close to him. It was just that he was usually busy with work and could not take care of everything. Hence, it was inevitable that he would neglect to interact with the child. Thinking of this, Muyaja could not help but laugh. It seemed that he was not a very qualified father. His gaze fell on her as he replied blandly, "Of course you can." Yin Shirshir was slightly stunned when she heard this. Then, her eyes widened in surprise. She was caught off guard by this sudden happiness. Really? How could this man agree so easily? She was in disbelief. Yin Shirshir was a woman who knew how to adapt to the circumstances. She loved Xiao Yichen very much, but she did not forget that she had signed a contract with him. The terms of the contract stated that she would unconditionally give up custody of Xiao Yichen. However, things were different now. Muyaja promised her that he would give her the whole world, his whole world. However, she did not ask for much. She only wanted a home with him and 2 children. She initially thought that the man would, at most, promise her to meet little Yichen once in a while. She did not expect him to agree so decisively. Her heart was filled. The man's lips curled into a smile. Why not? This was their child's. Was SSSSSSSS. She was Xiao Yichen's biological mother. Why couldn't she see Xiao Yichen? Thank you. Yin Shirshir smiled contentedly. Is that all? Muyaja lowered his eyes and looked at her. Obviously, he was not satisfied with such a simple word. Thank you? He did not need a verbal thank you. Yin Shirshir was not enlightened in this aspect, so she could not understand the meaning behind his words. It was often said that a woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the sea. However, she did not know that a man's heart was deeper than the sea. Especially a black-bellied man like Muyaja. He was even more unfathomable and unpredictable. Muyaja lifted his chin slightly and looked at her from the corner of his eyes. The meaning in his eyes could not be more obvious. Yin Shirshir understood the meaning in his eyes. This man was really a kissing maniac. Chapter 649. Yin Shirshir hooked her arm around the back of his neck and pressed her lips tightly against his. Muyaja cupped the back of her head with his hand and deepened the kiss. Charming, deep, and reluctant to part. Just as Yin Shirshir thought that she was about to suffocate, the kiss ended abruptly. Yin Shirshir snuggled in his arms lazily like a kitten. Suddenly, she thought of something and said, "Muyaja." Just as she said those 3 words, the man's light gaze landed on her face. Yin Shirshir blushed and stammered, "Ja." Only then did the man's lips curl into a satisfied smile. "Xiao Yichen, I think he's very skilled. Have you been training him since he was young?" Muyaja replied, "Yes. I sent him to the training camp when he was 4. The Cheetah Commando unit was the top special forces unit. The training was not the usual harsh. The elite soldiers from the Cheetah Commando unit could not be compared to the average soldiers. They were the elite soldiers in the truest sense. It was not an exaggeration to say that they licked the blood from the muzzle. Yin Shirshir could not help but click her tongue. No wonder that child's skills are so abnormal. You've been training him like this since he was young? The corner of Muyaja's lips twitched slightly. Did this woman just say that Xiao Yichen was abnormal? May I ask then, what was Yin Tianyo's rank? Xiao Yichen was skilled in martial arts because he had specially guided the child to this path. He had put in a lot of effort into this child. What about Yin Tianyu though? This child was the real terror. He was self-taught in the truest sense. He was simply a business genius. It was obvious that Yin Shirshir only treated him as an ordinary 6-year-old child. She did not even enroll him in a hobby course. This child, however, had naturally evolved. At the age of 7, he was already worth hundreds of millions. This was a real abnormality, alright? Compared to him, Xiao Yichen was obviously much more normal in a sense. Yin Shirshir did not notice the strange look in Muyaja's eyes and only rebuked him. The child is still so young. Yet you're imposing so much training on him. This will hinder his development. A 6-year-old child should be at the age of being carefree. He should be given a free childhood. Xiao Yichen's talent in this area since he was young. Muyaja's voice. Yin Shirshir was clearly surprised by this. Muyaja glanced at her and smiled. If this child is properly groomed, she'll become a genius strategist. One was Yu, the other was Little Chen. Things like genes were truly inconceivable. Yin Shishir shook her head in a daze. I still think that Xiao Yichen's ability is too abnormal. It's really unscientific for a child to have the skills of an adult. Muyaja's brows twitched violently. This stupid woman. Compared to Yu, that little demon king, Xiao Yichen was no longer abnormal. In comparison, Xiao Yichen was practically a little angel. Xiao Yichen's skills were indeed frightening, but his mentality was not much different from that of a child his age. Yin Tianyou's EQ and IQ were no longer in the category of a child. Yin Shishir had not seen the frightening side of Yin Tianyou, but Muyaja had experienced this child's skills. Chapter 650. The two of them were silent for a long time. Yin Shishir couldn't help but ask. There was a doubt that had been lingering in her heart for a long time. She had always wanted to ask him for confirmation, but she never had the chance. After thinking for a long time, she still wanted to ask him. Muyaja, can I ask you a question? Yin Shishir suddenly asked. Yes, ask. Yin Shishir suddenly sat up straight and faced him, her eyes calm. You should know my identity. Muyaja was stunned, but he soon understood what Yin Shishir was referring to. After careful consideration, he decided not to hide it from her, so he confessed. I found out about your identity 6 years ago. Yin Shishir was shocked. She would never have thought that this man would have found out about her identity 6 years ago. How did you know about my identity? Din. He looked up. Have you forgotten? 6 years ago, before you signed the surrogacy contract, you did a blood test. Your blood sample report shows that your blood type is MNSSU. This blood type is very rare, the rarest of the rare blood types. Yin Shishir frowned slightly. Her blood type was indeed very rare in the world. But how could you be so sure that I'm Mu Qingqing's daughter just based on my blood type? Yin Shishir asked. You know, there are many coincidences. Maybe it's just a coincidence. He looked at her and suddenly said, You look very much like her, very much like her. They were exactly the same. Especially her temperament and charm. It was impossible to replicate. If her photo was placed next to Mu Qingqing's, no one would suspect that they were not mother and daughter. Muyaja still retained the appearance of Mu Qingqing when she was young in the depths of his memory. When Mu Qingqing left the Mu family, he was already 5 years old, and could remember things. Even if his memory of Mu Qingqing was very vague, her beautiful face was deeply engraved in his memory, and left a deep impression. When he saw her photo 6 years ago, he felt that she was somewhat familiar. It was only when he saw Mu Qingqing's photo in Mu Sheng's study that his suspicions were confirmed. Therefore, he ordered the hospital to take Yin Shishir's blood sample for a paternity test. The DNA database still has Mu Qingqing's DNA report. After comparison, your DNA matches hers perfectly. This answer completely confirmed his guess. Muyaja lowered his gaze and met her eyes. I've already found out that you're Mu Qingqing's daughter. So you already knew? Yin Shishir smiled bitterly. She lowered her eyes slightly and slowly said, Mu Wanru stole my jade pendant. By a freak combination of factors, she took my identity and was recognized by the Mu Jia. Sadly, I only found out about this matter recently. From the moment she entered the Mu family, I thought that she was very suspicious. Yin Shishir was a little surprised. Then, why didn't you say anything? Is it important? Muyaja suddenly asked. Who was Mu Wanru? Was her identity real? It did not matter to him. Why is it not important? Yin Shishir smiled bitterly. If fate didn't play tricks on me, I would have been your fiancé from the start. They would not have met so late. She would not have met him in such an awkward position. Chapter 651. If not, they would not have met so late. She would not have faced him in such an awkward position. Instead, she would have stood beside him as his legitimate fiancé. Muyaja smiled at this. He could not help but ruffle her silky hair. This silly woman must have thought that if she were the one who had returned to the Mu family 15 years ago, she would have become his legitimate fiancé. Alas, he did not think so. In a way, if Mu Wanru had not replaced her, he might not have fallen in love with this woman. 15 years ago, He could only resist and reject Mu Qingqing. The young Mu Yaja harbored a strong enmity toward this woman. Mu Qingqing was the woman his father dreamed of, and the woman his mother hated for the rest of her life. She was the woman his father cherished for the rest of his life. Mu Lianqing had given her his love for the rest of his life. His heart had always been with Mu Qingqing, and it had never left her. Infatuation and devotion. Jiang Yishan's initial anger and humiliation to her eventual despair and depression were all caused by this woman. In Mu Yaja's mind, Mu Qingqing was undoubtedly a woman who had committed a heinous crime. It was this woman who, without any effort, made his parents' marriage disappear in name only. She was the main culprit. Hence, when Mu Xing pushed the 9-year-old Mu Wanru in front of him and told him that she was Mu Qingqing's daughter, his younger sister, and his future wife, Mu Yaja was furious. Mu Yaja looked at Mu Wanru with eyes full of disgust. He found her disgusting. However, for the inheritance of the Mu family's head, he did not hesitate to use her. He used her as the price to obtain the inheritance of Dishing Financial Group. It was only when he grew up that he understood. His father and mother's marriage was a sacrifice in the game between the rich and powerful. This marriage had nothing to do with romance or love. One had no choice but to marry, and the other had no choice but to marry. It was a transaction in name only. Mu Qingqing was not a third party. On the contrary, she had always been a chaste woman. However, his father's infatuation with Mu Qingqing had never changed. Only then did he erase his hatred towards Mu Qingqing. Perhaps, if she were the one Mu Sheng had brought back to the Mu family 15 years ago, he did not even dare to imagine if she would become his pawn. Mu Wanru replaced her identity and entered the Mu family, but she also replaced her and became the chess piece in his hands. To replace her as the victim. Fate seemed to have its own will. They had met at just the right time. Sometimes, a freak combination of factors might not actually be a freak combination of factors. However, in order to meet her, he had probably used up all his luck. 6 years ago, Mu Wanru was found to be infertile. You should know about this. Mu Yaja suddenly said slowly. Yin Shishir nodded. Yes, I know. He lowered his gaze. She wasn't born infertile. When Yin Shishir heard this, she widened her eyes in shock and looked at him in disbelief. How can that be? I heard that the Mu family even invited the most authoritative medical research center in the country for this matter. Dishing Financial Group controls 40% of the country's medical market share. Mu Yaja's lips curled into an extremely sinister smile. That's why it's not difficult for me to forge a diagnosis. Chapter 652. What do you mean? She somewhat understood, but also somewhat did not understand. She always felt that Mu Wanru's pregnancy was very suspicious from the beginning to the end. Thinking about it carefully, it's very strange. 6 years ago, Mu Wanru rushed into the room and condescendingly threatened her. If not for her infertility, she would not be the surrogate. Therefore, she learned that the fiancé of the employer who signed the contract with her was infertile. How could a person who had been judged by various authoritative organizations suddenly get pregnant? It's extremely strange. It's simply impossible. Although there are miracles, Mu Wanru's miracle is too strange. Mu Yaja looked at her face that constantly changed and slowly said, her so-called infertility diagnosis was forged by me. Forged by others. Yes. What kind of power does this man have? In the capital, Mu Yaja's family business is big, and he can cover the sky with one hand. And Mu Yaja is a person who can turn clouds and rain with a wave of his hand, playing with a lot of carnage. To forge a certificate of infertility, for him, it's just a matter of moving his mouth. But why did you do this? Yin Shishir was shocked and asked the confusion in her heart. Mu Yaja's eyes slightly twitched, and the bottom of his eyes burst out a biting cold light, but he said lightly, because she is a chess piece. A chess piece must obey the will of the master. This is the duty of a chess piece. Yin Shishir was shocked. However, after thinking about it carefully, she was not surprised. Such ruthless and indifferent words, from his mouth, she did not feel strange. However, she still felt confused. Chess piece? What chess piece? At the beginning, Grandpa ordered me to marry her. Mu Yaja hooked up his lips and smiled. If I get engaged with her, I can get the inheritance of the Mu Jia's lord. The Mujia is very big, but not everyone is qualified to enter the Mujia's main house. Only the Mujia's patriarch and the next generation's patriarch are eligible to live in the Mujia's main residence. At that time, his father had passed away. In such a large clan, he and his mother depended on each other for survival, and every step they took was filled with trepidation. The Mujia also has many factions within the Mujia. Both the direct descendants and the cadet branches were eyeing him like a tiger watching its prey. He was Mu Sheng's proudest grandson, and the most favorable candidate to be the next head of the family. Thus, there was no doubt that he had become a thorn in the side of those people. Many people wanted to get rid of him. Every day, every moment, passed with fear and trepidation. Therefore, at that time, the inheritance of the Mu family was undoubtedly a protective talisman for him and his mother. At that time, grandfather was old and his health was deteriorating. After my father passed away, the position of the head of the family had always been empty. Many people were eyeing it covetously, and grandfather had always been hesitant about whether he should settle the position of the head of the family. Mu Yaja said expressionlessly, "As for me, as the most powerful candidate, many people are eyeing me covetously, but I wasn't old enough then. In order to get the power of succession, I used marriage as a bargaining chip. Mu Wanru, on the other hand, is just a pawn for me to use. Do you think I'll have feelings for a chess piece?" Yin Shirshi's heart turned cold. This man, he was actually so cold and two-faced. He could actually use someone to this extent. If Mu Wanru knew that her infertility diagnosis was all used by this man, and she was the victim of his schemes, how would she feel? Chapter 653. She felt that Mu Wanru was really pitiful. She was so affectionate to the man she loved, but in the end, she didn't know that she was just a pawn in Mu Yaja's hands. Pitiful, sad, but she didn't feel sympathy. Wasn't she asking for all this? Yin Shirshir was shocked and couldn't help but feel that it was unbelievable. Then, if it was her who returned to the Mu family 15 years ago, would she also become a pawn of a man? Then she's pregnant now. Whose is the child? She asked carefully. Mu Yaja glanced at her and then said, "It's not mine." "Then whose is it?" "Alan, my personal assistant. You probably haven't seen him before." Yin Shirshir thought about it carefully for a while. Amidst her thoughts, she quickly realized that she might have seen this man before. That day in the bathroom of the restaurant, she had seen a man who had an ambiguous relationship with Mu Wanru. Although Mu Wanru appeared to be distant from him, from the man's behavior and expression, and even the way he looked at Mu Wanru, it was silently announcing the intimate relationship between them. How intimate? She didn't know. "I've seen that man. He looks clean and gentle. He's probably the Alan you mentioned." "When?" "Just a few days ago. I met him in a restaurant." "You saw him?" "Yes." "What did she say to you?" Yin Shirshir's expression changed. "She told me that she's pregnant with your flesh and blood." Mu Yaja played with her fingers with interest, then suddenly looked up and glanced at her playfully. "So you're jealous?" It was not a rhetorical question but a statement. Because of jealousy, she put his number on the blacklist. "No." Yin Shirshir denied stubbornly. Mu Yaja obviously didn't believe her, and there was a playful smile in his eyes. "Little liar, you're obviously jealous." "No." "Okay, no." He smiled indulgently, but did not intend to argue with this woman who did not mean what she said. She didn't expect this little fool to be so arrogant. He liked her arrogance. He liked everything about her. Yin Shirshir stared at his handsome face and suddenly burst into laughter. She couldn't hide the smile on her face. "What are you laughing at?" Mu Yaja frowned and asked in confusion. "Our young master Mu has been cuckolded." Yin Shirshir teased mercilessly. Mu Yaja's expression instantly changed, and his eyes suddenly became as cold as ice. "It doesn't count." "Huh." He suddenly stood up and grabbed her wrists, pulling her into his embrace. Yin Shirshir was caught off guard and fell into his arms. Mu Yaja lifted her chin and said word by word, "You are my woman." "She's not." Yin Shirshir was shocked, and her eyes widened. "So it doesn't count." "I'm just joking, and you're taking it seriously?" Yin Shirshir covered her mouth and laughed. "Mu Yaja, you're really like a child sometimes." "No." Mu Yaja lowered his gaze and hugged her in his arms. Lowering his head, he pecked her fingertips and breathed out, "I'm your man." Yin Shishi's cheeks blushed, and she pursed her lips without saying a word. "I'm your man, so I'll protect you." This was a responsibility that he had to fulfill as her man. She looked up and gently bit her lower lip with her pearly white teeth. Chapter 654. Her heart was deeply touched by his words. "Muyaja, are you not letting me into the Mu family to protect me?" Why do you ask?" "Intuition, I guess." Yin Shishi's eyes curved as her lips curled up slightly. "The Mu family gives me the feeling that it's a tiger's den. It doesn't feel warm at all. The family I want isn't like this. I won't let you step into such a scary place." Muyaja caressed her flawless face and could not help but touch her eyelashes. "I'll protect you and you well." Song Inya was sent to the hospital by a friend. The abrasions had already scabbed over, and the doctor cleaned and bandaged them for her. For an ordinary person, this was not considered a serious injury. However, for Song Inya, who had never suffered any injuries since she was young, this was probably the most serious one she had ever suffered. Along the way, she was depressed. When she thought of Yin Shishi's heart-wrenching words, she felt extremely aggrieved. When Jiang Qiming and Song Yunxi saw her return, they wanted to invite her to eat dessert. However, when they saw her worried face and her limping, they looked at each other in shock. Jiang Qiming's heart ached and she immediately went forward to ask, "Inya? What happened to you?" Song Yunxi also hugged her shoulders nervously and asked a few questions. Song Inya did not say a word. He lowered his head until he saw the bandaged wound on her knee. He scanned her from head to toe and saw that there were different degrees of abrasions all over her body. She was in a sorry state. "Inya, what happened to you?" Song Yunxi was a little anxious. "Why are you covered in injuries?" "Boo, brother." Song Inya's nose twitched. In the end, she could not hold it in and threw herself into his arms, wailing bitterly. "Inya, what happened to you? Why are you like this? What exactly happened? Tell me." Jiang Qiming was also anxious at the side. However, Song Inya just kept crying sadly. She curled up in Song Yunxi's arms and cried as if the world was about to collapse. Song Yunxi's heart ached, and she was at a loss. However, at this moment, she didn't know what to do with her precious little sister. Jiang Qiming was also anxious at the side. Song Inya had always been the princess of the Song Yunxi family. She was the apple of her parents' eye and was especially doted on. However, when Jiang Qiming saw her precious daughter crying wantonly in Song Yunxi's arms, she could not help but feel a knife in her heart. But she couldn't do anything about her daughter. Her daughter had always liked to stick to her since she was young, but for some reason after puberty, she became less close to her. No matter what happened, he rarely mentioned it to her. Perhaps it was because he had matured and some things were inconvenient to tell her. Therefore, as her mother, Song Inya rarely told her what was on her mind. Instead, she was very close to Song Yunxi and would tell her everything. After all, Song Yunxi was the eldest brother in the family, and he loved his two younger sisters very much. Song Inya was very dependent on him. Hence Jiang Qiming gave Song Yunxi a look. The latter understood and lowered his head to Song Inya. "Inya, tell me if there's anything. Brother will make a decision for you, okay?" Song Inya nodded slowly and said in a choked voice, "Brother, I'm so sad. I feel like I can't breathe." She thought of Yin Shishi's provocation in front of her. Every single word of his was still ringing in her ears. Chapter 655. She did not believe it. She really did not believe that Yin Shishi was Brother Mu's beloved woman. She also did not believe that Xiao Yichen was her and Brother Mu's child. However, facts spoke louder than words. Yin Shishi did not seem to be lying. The main thing was that she had carefully observed this woman's eyebrows and eyes. They really resembled Xiao Yichen's. Could it all be true? Years ago, there was a rumor that Mu Wanru was infertile, so the Mu family offered a sky-high price for Xiao Yichen to be a surrogate and not Mu Wanru's biological child. Could Yin Shishi be that mysterious surrogate mother? Song Yunxi brought her into the room and sat on the bed. Under Song Yunxi's gentle persuasion, Song Inya finally calmed down a little. She relied on Song Yunxi as much as anyone else. Song Yunxi was the only one who could truly tolerate her unreasonable behavior. It was to the extent that she was only willing to talk to him about anything. Brother, do you think it's possible between Brother Mu and me? Song Inya clenched her hands tightly and asked carefully. Song Yunshi was furious. He suddenly stood up with a gloomy expression. I knew it was him. Other than him, no one else has the ability to make you so distracted. He paced back and forth on the spot. Suddenly, he squatted in front of her and held her shoulders tightly. He asked seriously, Silly sister, do you like that man so much? I've told you many times that it's impossible between you and him. Didn't I tell you to give up? I like him. I've liked him for more than 10 years. You're asking me to give up just like that? I can't take it lying down, brother. She pouted. But you're related to him by blood. No one knows better than you whether it's possible between you and him. Song Yunshi slammed the table in anger. His sister had liked to stick to Muyaja since she was young. When they were young, she would follow him and call Muyaja uncle. But without the adolescent years of a young girl's heart, she felt that this uncle was constantly reminding her of their blood relationship. She deceived herself and changed the way she addressed Muyaja. It was as if this would shorten the distance between them. He didn't know what this girl was thinking. She was always talking about Brother Mu, Brother Mu. It was as if she had lost her mind. He was possessed by her. Irritated, Song Yunshi rubbed the hair on his forehead and glared at her in exasperation. The Missy was taken aback by his anger, but she persisted. So what if we're related by blood? I like Brother Mu and want to marry him. Nonsense. You're just messing around. Song Yunshi stood up angrily. Song Inya, you and I should call him uncle. You're his niece. It's fine if you don't call him Uncle Mu, but you keep saying that you want to be with him. Don't you know that this is indecent? If word gets out that you're doing this, it'll only embarrass the Song family. You'll embarrass me and our parents. Song Inya was indignant. I have many cousins who are together, and their children are all very healthy. This isn't considered indecent, right? What are you doing? Are you lying to yourself? Song Yunshi glared at her angrily, and could not help but reach out to poke her head. Use your brain and think about it. If you marry your uncle, what will outsiders think? Chapter 656. You. Song Yunshi pointed at her, and cried out in anger. Song Inya glared at her, and pursed her lips stubbornly. However, looking at the tears in her eyes, Song Yunshi's heart softened. Let's not talk about this anymore. It's useless for me to talk about this. You'll figure it out sooner or later. Song Yunshi could only comfort herself, and hope that her sister would completely give up on Muyaja one day. Even in the wealthy families, such marriages between cousins were not uncommon. However, the Song family had been a famous scholarly family in the capital for generations, especially during Old Master Song's generation. They were one of the 10 founding generals of the country, and had outstanding achievements. Their status in the capital was important and illustrious. Even the Mu family had to give the Song family some face. Therefore, the Song family was strict. If Old Master Song knew about this, he would probably be so angry that he would expel Song Inya from the family. Song Yunshi naturally could not let her sister go astray and sit back and do nothing. I can't figure it out. I really can't figure it out. I thought Brother Mu doted on me the most. I thought he liked me too. Song Inya could not figure it out no matter how hard she tried. She was the person Muyaja had always doted on the most. Even Mu Wanru, his fiancé, he had never doted on her so much. In Song Inya's eyes, Muyaja was cold to everyone else, but toward her, he doted on her in every possible way. She thought that she must be very special in Muyaja's heart. However, tonight's incident had dealt him a huge blow. There's a reason why he dotes on you so much. Don't you know? Song Yunshi felt that she was hopeless. What's the reason? Because you look very similar to Auntie Jiang. Song Yunshi sat in front of her, and carefully looked at her face. From the photo, you look almost exactly the same. When Auntie Jiang passed away, almost no one could get close to Uncle Mu. Only you, because of your face, gave him great comfort. It is precisely because your face is similar to Auntie Jiang's that he would pour his longing for Auntie Jiang onto you. The so-called love, to put it bluntly, you are just a substitute. Understand? Auntie Jiang and I look alike? Song Inya touched her face in disbelief. She was obviously confused by Song Yunshi's words. Seeing her confused look, Song Yunshi was a little surprised. Didn't Uncle Mu mention it to you? He had heard about this from Jiang Qimeng. Song Inya's face was very similar to Jiang Yishan's. When Jiang Yishan passed away, Mu Yaja locked himself in his room and did not come out. He did not eat or drink. In the Mu family, Mu Yaja's affection for his mother was deeper than anyone else's. The death of his beloved family member was a heavy blow to him. At that time, Jiang Qimeng brought Song Inya to the Mu family to attend Jiang Yishan's funeral and mourn. That was the first time he saw little Inya. At that time Mu Yaja, who was still young, stared at her for a long time. His face was expressionless as tears streamed down his face. He hugged her tightly in his arms. The more he missed Jiang Yishan, the more he doted on Song Inya. Song Inya was undoubtedly Mu Yaja's sustenance. He thought that Song Inya knew about this. Chapter 657. Song Yunshi sighed helplessly. That's because Auntie is the deepest pain in his heart. That's why he rarely mentions her. Song Inya was silent for a while before she suddenly asked, "Brother, do you have Auntie's photo? What do you want to do? I'm curious. I've never seen Auntie's face before. After hearing what you said, I also want to see how similar I look to her." Song Inya said matter-of-factly. Song Yunshi pulled out a photo from the album. It was the only photo of the sisters, Jiang Qimeng and Jiang Yishan. Song Inya took a look. Indeed, her facial features were very similar to Jiang Yishan's. If others saw it, they would only think that she was Jiang Yishan's daughter. She stared at the photo in a daze. So, the reason Brother Mu doted on her so much was because she had a face similar to Auntie's? Song Inya stared at the photo, and could not help caressing her cheek. The corners of her lips curled into a sly, deep arc. She looked like Auntie Jiang. Did that mean that at least Brother Mu wouldn't hate her? Did that mean that she still had a chance? That Yun Shishir was nothing. Even if Brother Mu doted on her, it was at most a whim. Who knew? She might be smug now and abandon him not long after. However, Brother Mu would not abandon her. She loved him. Even if it was because of ethics, even if she did not have a proper status, she did not care at all. Her face was the bargaining chip that she held tightly in her hands. She must snatch Brother Mu back from that woman. Song Inya pursed her lips tightly. She did not know that she had such a unique advantage in the past. So what if she was a substitute? So what if she was just a part of Brother Mu? No matter what identity or method she used, as long as she could stay by the side of the man she loved, she would endure any grievances and use any means. Song Yunshi did not know what Song Inya was thinking in her heart at this moment. She only lifted a corner of her skirt and looked at the bloody gauze with extreme heartache. "What's going on with your wound?" Song Inya returned to her senses and looked at Song Yunshi's worried and heartbroken expression. She immediately pretended to be aggrieved and complained, "Brother, someone bullied me." Song Yunshi was furious. "Who bullied you?" "Yin Shishir. This is the woman who hit me." "Hit you?" Song Yunshi was so shocked that she stood up all of a sudden. Her handsome eyes were filled with anger. "Who is Yin Shishir? Where did this woman get the guts to bully you?" Woo-woo, sobbing, Song Inya recounted what had happened that night. This time, Song Yunshi was completely infuriated. Normally, he couldn't even bear to lay a finger on his precious little sister. But now, she had been bullied outside, and was even injured all over. How could he bear it? Song Yunshi clenched her fists and gritted her teeth in anger. "That woman is called Yin Shishir, right? Brother, don't be angry. She seems to be Brother Mu's woman. Although she's quite arrogant, Brother Mu dotes on her, so she definitely has nothing to fear. You'd better not stand up for me. What if you offend Brother Mu? She's just a woman. Although the Mu family is powerful and influential, they still have to give the Song family some face in the capital. I don't believe that he'll offend the Song family for a despicable woman. Inya, don't be sad. I'll stand up for you." Chapter 658. The night was getting darker. Mu Yaja sent Yin Shishir home. Along the way, Yin Shishir was still immersed in the surprise just now and couldn't come back to her senses. Before this, Mu Yaja took her in a helicopter and flew around the island. This was her first time in a helicopter. It was very novel and interesting. Looking down at the night scene of the island from high up in the sky, The entire island was decorated with starlight. The colorful lights reflected on the surface of the lake, dyeing the surface of the lake into a beautiful color. At a glance, it was so beautiful that it was suffocating. Even though she was a little nervous when she boarded the helicopter for the first time, when she looked down at Hushin Island, she was deeply impressed by the beautiful scenery. No wonder it was said that all girls dreamed of going on a date with the man they loved in a Bali restaurant. No matter how big or small, it was so romantic that it made people feel as if they had entered a fantasy world. The night wind blew, and Hushin Island seemed to be surrounded by a sea of stars. However, the surprise was far more than she had imagined. When she walked down from the helicopter, under the cluster of fireworks, more than 10,000 roses almost covered the ground. She couldn't help but have the illusion that she was in a sea of flowers. In the past, when she was still in school, she often saw couples sending roses to each other. One, two, and even some boys sent a car full of roses to make the girls happy. At that time, she thought that sending roses was really tacky. Was there no other way to express romance? However, when she looked at the roses in front of her, which were like a carpet of flowers, against the gorgeous fireworks, reflecting the dreamy colors, she was so surprised that she was suffocating. It turned out that a sea of roses was so beautiful. It was so beautiful that she couldn't come back to her senses for a long time. Tonight's date had more or less satisfied all of her desires for a date. Muyaja glanced at Yun Shirshir sitting in the passenger seat, who was holding her heart and lost in thought. He couldn't help but laugh. What are you thinking about? Muyaja, do you know? I originally thought that sending roses was tasteless. Yun Shirshir turned to look at him, her eyes full of surprise. But tonight, I understand why girls like roses. Not only was he surprised, but he was also touched. She was so touched that she wanted to cry. It was a kind of touched feeling of being doted on. It turned out that girls all yearned for romance. Even in the past, he felt that giving a woman roses was very unromantic. But if it was someone she liked, that would be great. He had wanted her to stay by his side for one more night, but Yun Shirshir insisted on going home to accompany Yu. Previously, she had told Yu that she had to film a few scenes overnight, and would not be able to return home for a few nights. Yu's disappointed expression made her heart ache. Therefore, she wanted to hurry home and accompany him. The car stopped at the entrance of the villa. Yun Shirshir gets out of the car, and sees that the light in the study is still on. His heart skipped a beat. She subconsciously raised her hand to look at her watch. It was already past 1 a.m. What was this child doing? Why aren't you asleep yet? Muyaja also got out of the car. When he saw that the light in the study was still on, he was stunned. The two of them looked at each other. In the study, Yin Tianyu sat in front of the computer with a frown and a serious expression. His fingers flew across the keyboard from time to time as he typed a series of instructions in the program window. On the screen, in the black interface, lines of code instructions were constantly being refreshed. Chapter 659. He stared at the screen expressionlessly. He was so engrossed that he did not hear the sound of the study room's door opening despite his usually sharp senses. There was a suffocating atmosphere in the study room. Yu stared intently at the screen as she browsed through the data on it. Her pinkish but tense face was filled with killing intent, and her eyes were as cold as ice. However, after a short while, the data on the screen suddenly turned red. Yu's pinkish lips pursed slightly, as if victory was already in her grasp. Her fingers danced on the keyboard as she typed continuously. Tap, 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 tap. The tapping sound of the mechanical keyboard did not seem to stop. Other than that, there was only dead silence. He held his breath as his eyes shone like torches. A hint of mockery flashed across his eyes. Shortly after, the data seemed to have collapsed and turned into a garbled mess. Shortly after, the screen flashed with the image of the Pentagon's home defense system collapsing. The Hurricane Group's logo appeared on the home page. The boy's tense expression faded as an elegant smile appeared on his face. Humph. Trying to fight with me? You're overestimating yourself. He closed the interface and pushed the keyboard away. He slowly picked up the cup of Ceylon black tea beside him, and elegantly took a sip. At the bottom right corner of the window, Lee Hanlon's video conference window kept flashing. He clicked on it, and the computer screen switched to a video. Lee Hanlon's figure was exposed before the camera, and his face was filled with amazement. Oh my God! You do you have to be so fierce? The Pentagon's defense system is broken just like that. He was already dumbfounded when he witnessed the collapse of the Pentagon's heavy defense net. This child's ability was beyond his expectations. The Pentagon's defense system was very strict. However, in the hands of this boy, the system was completely destroyed in just a few minutes. Did he have to be so fierce? Did he have to be so heaven-defying? How could this child have such terrifying lethality? Lee Hanlon was so shocked that he could not speak. Heh. Yun Tianyu sneered, his eyes filled with disdain and contempt. To me, the Pentagon's so-called defense system exists in name only. How dare they confiscate his cargo ship? Since when did the Pentagon dare to hack into his system, mobilizing the port to block his route and detain his cargo ships? This was undoubtedly an act of twisting a tiger's whiskers. In the history of the American government, presidents would always do a few stupid things when they were in power. These newly appointed government officials actually dared to provoke him? Good, very good. Since they didn't know the rules, he didn't mind teaching them a lesson. This transaction was extremely important to him. Although the North American market was not under his jurisdiction, this sea route was under his control. How dare they block his path? Courting death. Since they dared to do such a thing, they couldn't blame him for being ruthless. Now that he had breached the defensive net, the Pentagon had suffered a great loss. It would probably take some time for them to recover. When Lee Hanlon heard his arrogant tone, he was even more impressed. He even began to wonder if this child had a genetic mutation. Comparing oneself to others was indeed infuriating. He couldn't even type the Wubi input method smoothly. However, this child was already able to break through the Pentagon's defense net in a short period of time. Chapter 660. Yin Tianyu tapped his fingertips on the table. Just as he was deep in thought, he suddenly felt that something was amiss. On the screen, Lee Hanlon suddenly stopped talking. His eyes were fixed on something behind him. Yin Tianyu was a little creeped out by his gaze. Where are you looking? Mommy. Lee Hanlon opened his mouth in a daze. Mommy. Feeling suspicious, Yin Tianyu followed his line of sight. Behind him, Yin Shirshir stood rooted to the ground with a look of bewilderment. Mu Yaja, who was standing beside her, had an unfathomable look on his face. Mommy! Yu was instantly scared out of his wits by the ghostly appearance of the two people. His heart almost stopped beating at that moment. He stood up straight from the leather chair in shock, and subconsciously reached out to turn off the computer screen. His guilty conscience action made the expression on Yin Shirshir's face even weirder. Seeing this, Muyaja's smile gradually deepened. He was scared witless by Yin Shirshir's doubtful gaze. Mommy, why did she come back at this time? Did she not say that she would be staying with the production team for a period of time, and could not return home? He counted the days. She should be back the day after tomorrow at the earliest. Why was she now? Also, when did the two of them enter his study room? Like ghosts, they appeared behind him without a sound and did not say a word. Yu patted his chest. He was scared to death. Did they have to be so scary? It was scary enough to scare someone to death, all right? He did not know when they came in and how much of his words they had heard. Yu glanced at Muyaja again, and felt even more bewildered. Why was he here too? Mommy, why are you back at this time? Yu changed from her kingly aura to that of an adorable little fairy. She reached out and tugged at Yin Shirshir's sleeve. Her tone was coquettish. Yin Shirshir stared at the changes in his expression. Suddenly, she asked in confusion. Darling, what were you doing just now? Yu looked nervous and played dumb. I didn't do anything. He glanced at Muyaja warily. However, he had an, I know what you're doing expression on his face. His heart trembled. Mommy didn't know much about things on a deeper level, so she naturally couldn't understand what he was doing just now. But Muyaja was different. Even if he didn't understand, he should at least understand some of what he said. Little Munchkin was a little worried. The situation just now was so intense that he could not spare any energy to pay attention to the things around him. Therefore, he did not notice when they opened the door and entered the study. She didn't even notice the sound of footsteps. Really? Yin Shirshir saw that he looked extremely guilty and was a little suspicious. But I think I heard you say something about courting death? Yu was her gentle little god, her adorable little angel. How could he possibly say such cruel words? Yu's brain suddenly stopped working. After thinking carefully, he immediately explained. No. Mommy, don't think too much. Yu was playing a game. What game? Red alert. Yu explained. It's a strategy game. Then why did you say the Pentagon? This is how the game is played. You can win if you occupy the Pentagon. Yu explained with a face full of cold sweat. She kept looking at Muyaja's expression. Chapter 661. The man's light gaze landed on him. Obviously, he understood what he was doing just now. This son of his was more impressive than he had imagined. He could actually break through the Pentagon's security system effortlessly. The student had surpassed the master. The father and son exchanged a look, each keeping a secret from the other. Yin Shirshir was skeptical. Really? It's true. Mommy, Yu is really playing a game. Yin Tianyu pursed his lips aggrievedly. His innocent and naive eyes were like those of a Bambi fawn as he launched a gentle attack on her. Yin Shirshir was finally defeated, but she could not help reprimanding him. You should pay attention to the time when playing a game. It's already so late. Didn't I tell you to go to bed on time every day? Mommy isn't home, so why are you fooling around? Yu heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this. It seemed that his mommy believed him. Immediately, a pitiful expression appeared on his face. I'm sorry, Mommy, I was wrong. I didn't do it on purpose. It's just that this round took longer than usual. Yu won't do it again. There won't be a next time. Yin Shirshir reprimanded him. Yu immediately nodded his head and pleaded. Mommy, Yu is really hungry. Mommy will cook some noodles for Yu, okay? With that, he pitifully tugged at the corner of her clothes and acted coquettishly. I really don't know what to do with you. Yin Shirshir's heart softened. I'll cook some noodles for you. Quickly tidy up the study room and go to bed after eating. Okay. Yin Tianyu immediately cheered and clapped his hands in joy. Yin Shirshir helplessly reached out to pat his head and left the study room to cook noodles. The father and son were left standing in the study room, facing each other. The gentleness and cuteness on Yin Tianyu's face instantly faded as he looked coldly at Muyaja. With an unfriendly look he questioned. Muyaja, why are you here? Muyaja looked down at him and couldn't help but say, ungrateful brat. Yin Tianyu frowned, not understanding what he was talking about. Muyaja smiled wickedly and squatted down to look him in the eye. When you lied to your mommy just now, I was kind enough not to expose you. Is this how you treat me the moment your mommy left? I'm not lying. I'm just playing a game. Little Munchkin shrugged innocently. Breaching the Pentagon's security program was indeed like a simple and low-level game to him. It was not even challenging at all. He wasn't lying, and he never lied to his mommy. He was a good boy. Yin Tianyu had a clear conscience. Yes, I'm playing a game. He nodded earnestly. It was just that this game was beyond the average adult hacker's capability. Breaching the Pentagon in minutes. I'm really impressed by you. Muyaja squinted at him. You play with firearms? Yin Tianyu's face darkened. This man was more capable than he had imagined. He could actually understand it. Are you in charge of North America and East Asia's air routes? Yin Tianyu was completely speechless. His daddy was not someone to be trifled with either. Muyaja sighed helplessly. Your mommy is stupid and can't understand these things, but I can. My mommy isn't stupid. Yin Tianyu glared at him and retorted with a snort. You're not allowed to speak ill of my mommy. Okay. Chapter 662. Then, why don't you call me daddy? Muyaja looked at him, his lips curling into a playful smile. Yin Tianyu's gaze changed and his face turned cold. You want me to call you daddy? Yu's eyes were full of contempt and disdain. You want me to call you daddy? Dream on. Yu proudly crossed his arms and raised his head with a pout. His eyes were full of childishness. This man was dreaming. He wanted him to call him daddy. This person was not even married yet, so how could he change it? Was that even possible? Muyaja cocked a brow and nodded. Stubborn fellow. Are you really not going to call me that? Dream on. These 3 words were a merciless rebuke. Yin Tianyu did not give him any face and coldly tugged at the corner of his lips. Mu Yaja shook his head helplessly, looking troubled. Then, I can only report your situation to your mommy. Situation? What situation? Yin Tianyu squinted his eyes warily and sized him up. His brows furrowed in confusion. What do you mean by that? Mu Yaja patiently guided him. Little thing. Guess what will happen if your mommy finds out that you're the boss of Leji Holdings? Yin Tianyu's good-looking brows furrowed slightly as he thought about it seriously. Suddenly, he realized something and coldly glanced at him from the corner of his eyes. He snorted and questioned. Are you threatening me? Yes. Mu Yaja calmly nodded and admitted it. The corner of Yin Tianyu's eyes twitched violently as he mocked. Mu Yaja, can you be any more shameless? A certain man nodded seriously and shamelessly. Yes, I dare. Do you want to try? Yin Tianyu was stunned. This man was really shameless. He was more shameless than he thought. Yu did not take his threat seriously and only sneered. Mu Yaja, do you think you can threaten me with this? Regarding my identity, I'll come clean with my mommy sooner or later. It's just a matter of time. You can't threaten me. Oh, is that so? Mu Yaja glanced at him from the corner of his eyes and dragged out his last word. Hearing this, the little lad looked up and saw a flash of cunning in the man's eyes. His heart shuddered involuntarily. He actually felt a little guilty because of the smile in his eyes. Mu Yaja's eyes and his handsome face slowly inched closer to the little lad's eyes. With a sinister smile, his thin lips suddenly spouted these words. You guess. If your mommy. If you know, what if she knows that you dabble in firearms, hacking, smuggling, and oil? Every word made Yin Tianyu shudder with fear and trepidation. Her watery eyes couldn't help but widen as she stared at him in disbelief. The sinister and playful smile on Mu Yaja's face was glaring in his eyes at this moment. Yu was completely speechless. This man, how much dirt did he have on him? How did he find out? Yu eyed him suspiciously. He was wary and suspicious. He clearly hid his identity very well. How did this man find out about his identity? You want to ask me how I found out? Mu Yaja seemed to have seen through his thoughts. Yin Tianyu pursed his lips tightly and did not say a word. Mu Yaja reached out and pinched his chubby cheeks with interest. Then, with a deep smile, he deliberately provoked him. I'm not telling you. Yin Tianyu ground his teeth. Chapter 663. What a pervert. Yin Tianyu was infuriated by his repulsive look, but he could do nothing about it. Mu Yaja rubbed his chin and asked curiously, when did you start playing with firearms? Is there a need for me to tell you? It should be last May when you officially joined Hurricane Group, right? Mu Yaja blinked. Yin Tianyu was stunned again. This man was truly a pervert. He clearly knew everything, yet he still asked him. I just want to see if you're honest with Daddy. Mu Yaja saw through his thoughts again and explained. Yin Tianyu's face was stiff and distorted. Did he have the ability to read minds or what? Could he tell what he was thinking with just one look? Yin Tianyu stared at his eyes suspiciously, trying to find some strange secret on his face. Mu Yaja lazily said, Stop looking. I don't know how to read minds. Yu's lips twitched. F*CK. No, I can't get angry, and I can't swear. If Mommy comes in and sees me freaking out, I'll be done for. Be a gentleman. Be elegant. Be a gentleman. Be elegant. Yu repeatedly reminded himself. Finally, he calmed down and smiled elegantly. Mu Yaja, you know a lot. Yes. I also know that you're the head of East Asia's firearms market. Yin Tianyu involuntarily took a step back to maintain a safe distance from him. He originally thought that Mu Yaja did not know his identity. Only now did he realize that he had underestimated this man. Black-bellied, the ultimate black-bellied. Poor Yu. If this man was really as simple as he thought, then who did he inherit his black-bellied genes from? His son was not simple, so his father was naturally not a simple character, either. Mu Yaja saw his guarded expression and smiled. I also know that you're the designer of Hurricane Group's arsenal. Leji Holdings' machine research technology can be used to manufacture missiles. Yin Tianyu could no longer hold it in. Where did you find out about this? Yes, I've been to your study room. Muyaja smiled evilly. There are a lot of design drawings on your computer. In addition, there's also the research technology for quantum computers. Yin Tianyo's face drained of color. You've cracked my computer? Yes. Muyaja gave a concise answer. That day, before flying to England, and before Yin Shirsha returned home, he browsed through Yin Tianyo's study room. There were many design drawings hidden under the desk. Initially, he had thought that these drawings were for Leji Holdings machines and technologies. However, upon closer inspection, he was shocked to discover that these technologies could also be used in the field of missiles. Turning on the computer, he broke through the 3 layers of defense that little Munchkin had set up. However, he couldn't break through the 4th layer no matter what he tried. He guessed that this system probably had 9 layers of protection, but with his ability, he could only break through 3 layers at most. But there was one thing he wouldn't say out loud. Otherwise, it will be embarrassing. It's a little embarrassing that I can't crack the defense system set by my son. Yin Tianyu looked at him deeply and thought that he had cracked his 9 layers of defense. He could not help but look at the man in front of him in a new light. You actually went through my confidential files. Chapter 664. What else do you know? Yin Tianyo's eyes were filled with wariness. Muyaja raised his eyebrows wickedly. Isn't this enough? Arms smuggling and oil monopoly. This is a crime. I didn't expect my son to be the head of the arms syndicate. It's so scary. Muyaja patted his chest as if he were truly frightened. Yin Tianyu was completely speechless. Pretentious. What an actor. He clearly looked very calm, all right. How contemptible. This man was too black-bellied. He was even more black-bellied than he had imagined. Muyaja pondered for a moment before asking, Say, do you think your mommy will get a heart attack because of you being the head of the arms syndicate at such a young age? Yin Tianyu smiled disdainfully, his face full of contempt. Even if you tell her, she'll only believe me and not you. After all, in her eyes, I'm the cutest and most gentlemanly baby. What if I have evidence? Muyaja suddenly retorted. Yin Tianyu was startled. What? I'm sure your mommy will be very surprised if I have evidence of your identity. The evil smile on Muyaja's face was glaring. Yin Tianyu gritted his teeth, thinking that this man was really abominable. If he could, he really wanted to tear apart this black-bellied smiling face. Your mommy is like a pure and innocent little rabbit. If she knows that her son is the head of the arms syndicate, won't she be frightened? Yin Tianyu pressed. How much do you know? Muyaja looked up at the sky. He put on an innocent look as if he knew nothing. However, Yin Tianyu knew that this man probably knew everything about him. No matter how unwilling he was, he had to compromise. With a frown and pursed lips he asked, What's the condition of confidentiality? Let me hear you call me daddy. Muyaja raised his arrogant chin. The topic was back to square one again. Yin Tianyo's face flushed red. It was so hot that it almost emitted smoke. How embarrassing. If he did not call him that, he was really afraid that this man would tell his mommy about his identity. If mommy knew that he was playing with firearms and oil, wouldn't she be so scared that she would have a heart attack, as he said? She might even destroy him. He dared not imagine what kind of scary situation that would be. He originally intended to keep this matter a secret. He thought that Muyaja would not be able to find out his identity. He did not expect that he had underestimated this man. Yin Tianyu gritted his teeth and gave him a sidelong glance before turning around. With his back facing his father, he held the corner of the table for support and practically squeezed out 2 words through gritted teeth. Daddy. She was gnashing her teeth in humiliation. His voice was as soft as a mosquito, almost inaudible. Shouting these 2 words was already the limit for him. Muyaja, however, did not appreciate her kindness and replied in a harsh tone. I didn't hear you. Yin Tianyu angrily turned around and accused. You clearly heard it. I didn't hear it. Really? I swear. Muyaja raised his palm in a serious manner. Yin Tianyu gritted his teeth in anger. Muyaja, do you believe that I'll blow up your Mu Group's headquarters? Muyaja said. Son, you're so cruel. I'm going to tell your mommy. You only know how to complain. Yin Tianyu exploded in anger. What can you do to me? Muyaja looked at his little face, which was red from anger. It was tender, and adorable. He could not help but pinch it. Chapter 665. Call me Daddy. Daddy. Your voice is a little soft. Yu clenched his fists and decided to bear with it. Daddy. Can't you be gentler? Daddy. When Yin Shirshir finished cooking the noodles and entered the study room, she saw this scene. She saw Yin Tianyu standing in front of Muyaja with downcast eyes and calling out softly, Daddy. Daddy. Each call was softer than the last. Each call was cuter than the last. Muyaja's ears were very pleasing to the ear. Yin Shirshir could not help but be stunned. Since when did this father-son pair have such a good relationship? She cleared her throat and coughed a few times. Yin Tianyu glanced at her from the corner of his eye, and saw her standing at the door. He immediately stood up straight with an innocent and adorable smile on his face. Mommy. Yin Shirshir helplessly hugged her arms. What are you guys doing? Yin Tianyu's face inexplicably turned red when he heard this. Muyaja, however, answered blandly, We're exchanging feelings. Yin Shirshir. Yin Tianyu. How shameless. Who's exchanging feelings with you? You're the one who's sticking to me. I'm not exchanging feelings with you. Who has feelings for you? Yin Tianyu felt extremely humiliated. I'll never play with this man again. He angrily stomped his feet, and then looked at Yin Shirshir with an extremely resentful and aggrieved expression. His big, watery eyes were glistening with tears. He looked as if he was about to cry. Yin Shirshir, however, was completely in a daze. She did not understand that this child, who had always rejected Muyaja, was now calling him Daddy, with each call sweeter than the last. Did I see a ghost? Or Yin Shirshir suddenly glared suspiciously at Muyaja. Did you bully my baby? Her eyes were as sharp as a gun. Muyaja immediately raised his hands innocently and stood up. He pursed his lips and explained, I'm innocent. I didn't do anything. Both father and son looked at him pitifully and innocently. Yin Shirshir was stunned. He actually had a misconception. The father and son in front of him looked more innocent than the other. They were like two dogs wagging their tails and begging for mercy. They were quite cute, although this analogy was not very kind. But it was indeed very similar. Yin Shirshir suddenly couldn't help but laugh out loud. Seeing her suddenly smile, Yin Tianyu felt even more aggrieved. His expression crumbled as he softly whined, Mommy. All right, the noodles are ready. After saying that, Yin Shirshir turned around and entered the restaurant. Yin Tianyu turned his head to glare fiercely at his father. Muyaja lowered his eyes to look at him with a sinister smile. Are you satisfied? Muyaja? What did you call me? Muyaja knitted his brows in displeasure. Call me Daddy. Be good. I've already called you Daddy. Yin Tianyu felt that it was necessary to remind him not to push his luck. Muyaja could not help laughing when he saw his awkward look. The little guy was good in every way. He was just especially arrogant and awkward. Asking him to call him Daddy was akin to forcing him to swallow a gun. Was it that difficult? You did call me Daddy earlier, but my condition is that you call me Daddy forever. Forever? Yin Tianyu was shocked. He clenched his fists so tightly that smoke was about to rise from the top of his head. Muyaja, isn't your request too much? How is it too much? I'm your daddy. You're my son. Chapter 666. Hearing this, Muyaja's eyes turned into crescents. He squatted down slightly and held his shoulders. He quietly looked at the little lad at eye level. There was no need to hide the affection in his eyes. His thin lips parted slightly as a few words escaped his lips. Is it too late now? His tone and expression were serious. Yin Tianyu was slightly taken aback and stunned. Is it too late for me to dote on you, pamper you and love you now? Muyaja could not help holding his little hand and gently massaging the back of it with his fingers. The little lad's hand was soft and fleshy. It was the softness of a 7-year-old child. His skin was as white as snow, and the blood vessels under his skin were clearly visible. His fingertips were adorably pinkish. It was hard to imagine that this pair of hands had created so many incredible legends. It was this pair of hands that had destroyed the Pentagon's defense system just a few minutes ago. His son was a genius. Even though he was only 7 years old, His achievements had attracted the attention of the world. It was as if a powerful soul was hidden in his small body. Incredible. This was his son. He should be proud of him. He should be extremely gratified to have such an outstanding and talented son. However, now as he held his tender little hand, Muyaja felt a sourness spreading in his heart. His heart ached. His heart really ached for this child. No matter how outstanding his achievements were, there was no doubt that he was only a 7-year-old child. He did not even know how to imagine what kind of childhood he had. While investigating his background and identity, he also received a thick stack of medical reports. According to the reports, the child had spent most of his time in the hospital before he was 3 years old. Congenital heart insufficiency, asthma, past respiratory syndrome. Muyaja squeezed his little hand, the heartache in his eyes overflowing. Yin Tianyu was stunned for a moment before he slowly withdrew his little hand from his father's. It's probably too late, right? His brows furrowed slightly as he pursed his lips. I'm already used to it. He was strong enough now. He was strong enough to protect his mommy. The wealth and power he possessed were more than enough to protect this family. Other than mommy, nothing else matters to me. With that, he slowly turned around, took a deep breath, and left the study room. Muyaja's lips curled into a smile as he stared at the man's back. He could tell that the child yearned for his embrace so much. That day in the hospital, when she hugged him, her small hands carefully wrapped around his waist and nestled in his embrace. Although it was only for a moment, she was as obedient as a kitten that had retracted its claws. It was just that he was stubborn. After all, 7 years of estrangement was neither deep nor shallow. But there was still a chasm between them. It seemed that it would not be easy to walk into his heart and make him accept him as his father. Yin Tianyu was holding a bowl of noodles in satisfaction when she entered the dining room. The moment she saw him, her gaze instantly changed, and her expression became somewhat complicated. Yin Shirshir asked, Yu, how's mommy's cooking? Great. Yu clapped his hands and was not stingy with his praise. The noodles were not burnt. The noodles were not half-cooked, and the taste was not salty or bland. Her cooking had improved. Chapter 667. As long as he did not get food poisoning after eating it, he would like anything his mommy made personally. He would not reject anything. Yin Shirshir also prepared Muyaja's portion. The man sat at the table and took a bite too. His brows furrowed. This time, her culinary skills did not amaze him as much as the previous time. Moreover, there was a little too much salt, so his throat was a little sore. It was not up to standard. What he did not know was that the noodles Yin Shirshir made the last time he tasted it was the best she had ever made. Yin Shirshir noticed his frown and asked anxiously, What's wrong? It doesn't taste good. Muyaja put down his chopsticks and opened his mouth. Just as he was about to give his review, he was acutely aware of a warning gaze on him. He followed his line of sight and saw Yin Tianyu clenching his chopsticks tightly. His piercing gaze seemed to be warning him that he would only accept 5-star reviews and not negative ones. If you can do it, then do it. If you can't, then don't talk nonsense. It was as if he were to give a negative review of this bowl of noodles, the little lad would blow up the Mu Group's headquarters in a fit of rage the next second. He was simply a mommy protector. Under Yin Tianyu's icy gaze, Muyaja cleared his throat and praised against his will. Yes, it tastes good. Only then was Yin Tianyu satisfied. Yin Shirshir raised her brow in surprise. Really? It's really delicious. Yin Tianyu said. My mommy is a 5-star chef. Muyaja's lips twitched. This flattery was not exaggerated at all. If such a standard was a 5-star chef standard, then all the hotels under the Mu Group should close down. Seeing his strange expression, Yin Tianyu's icy gaze pierced him like a ray. It was as if he was asking, Why? Are you not convinced? Convinced. Muyaja hardened his heart, gritted his teeth, and forced himself to finish the noodles. Yin Tianyu, on the other hand, was quietly lowering his eyelashes. Be it his posture or his movements, they were incomparably elegant. He was a living example of an aristocratic little gentleman. It was as if he were not eating a bowl of home-cooked noodles, but was in a high-class Western restaurant. He had a natural aristocratic temperament. Just a bowl of noodles was enough to show that he was an aristocrat. He was not an ordinary person. When Yin Shirshir saw that Mu Yaja had finished all the noodles, she was delighted. Doesn't it taste great? Very good. Mu Yaja praised against his will. As he spoke, he took the handkerchief and carefully wiped the corners of his lips. In our family, Yu cooking is the best. If there's a chance next time, you should try it. Yu immediately said cutely. Yu only cooks for mommy. With that, he gave Mu Yaja a disdainful look. It was as if to say, give up. He only cooks for mommy and won't cook for you. This lad, he was too biased. Mu Yaja's eyes expressed his protest. Yin Tianyo's eyes expressed his protest. He refused to admit, accept, or carry it out. His protest was invalid. The two of them, one eyebrow and one eye, faced each other in the air. They did not speak and only communicated with their eyes. Yin Shirshir watched them exchange flirtatious glances, and was a little confused. However, she couldn't understand why the two of them were exchanging glances with each other. This was probably a special tacit understanding between father and son. After this incident, Yin Tianyu realized with regret that he seemed to have suffered a huge loss. He was actually led by the nose by this man. Chapter 668. Minyu walked up to him nervously and reported, Chairman Mu, the company's internal network seems to have been attacked by a hacker. It's paralyzed. Paralyzed? Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows and asked suspiciously, how could the internal network be paralyzed? Did the technical department deal with it? This hacker seems to be very powerful. The technical department is currently racking their brains trying to figure out how to fix the loophole. Loophole? He walked into the office and turned on his computer. His computer was the mainframe that connected to the company's network. Even if the hacker was very powerful, this computer should not have fallen. However, in the next second, he was slapped in the face by reality. On the screen, a program window suddenly popped up, and an explosive dance song suddenly rang throughout the office. Uptown Funk. On the screen, along with the music, countless chicks were twisting their butts and dancing on the screen. A few words slowly floated above their heads. Idiot. 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 Then there was a mocking voice. Ha ha ha. Mu Yaja's face instantly turned pale. He leaned back slightly and rubbed his smooth chin. There was no need to think about who was the mastermind behind all this. On the screen, a few chicks with arrogant expressions were still waving their handkerchiefs and dancing. Idiot. 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 Yin Shirshir received a call from Lin Fengtian. At first, when she saw Lin Fengtian's call on the screen, she could not help but feel guilty. Last time, because of Mu Yaja, the crew had damaged a few pieces of equipment. It must have been a great blow to their vitality. She did not know if Director Lin would blame her. After all, this happened because of her. She really felt guilty. With an uneasy feeling, Yin Shirshir picked up the phone. Lin Fengtian's excited and emotional voice came from the other end of the phone. Shirshir, you are my goddess. Yin Shirshir was confused. What do you mean, Director Lin? I don't quite understand. You don't know? While Lin Fengtian felt strange, he quickly recounted what had happened in the past few days. It turned out that after Mu Yaja lost his temper, he ordered the crew of the Green Apple to stop filming. The videotapes were also confiscated. The production crew had damaged several sets of equipment, and the film inside had not been exported in time. Lin Fengtian was extremely depressed. Forget about the few damaged equipment, but they were all shots of the campus. It wouldn't be a big deal if they didn't take any more shots when the time came. But the thing that made him depressed was that the scene in the music room that day was simply impeccable. It was exciting. If he could keep this scene, even if he took a few more punches, it would not be a pity. Now that the production team had been banned and the videos had been confiscated, Lin Fengtian had no place to cry. However, the previous night, Mu Yaja had given him an order to contact the film crew and told him that filming could resume as usual. As for the damaged equipment, Huanyu Corporation gave him a few new sets of cameras. Not only that, the videotape of the scene in the music room was also returned to him. Everything seemed to be back on track. Then what about Yin Shirshir? Ever since he found out that Yin Shirshir was Mu Yaja's woman, his impression of Yin Shirshir had changed. Mu Yaja, the crown prince of Dishing Financial Group and the future head of the Mu family, was extremely powerful. Chapter 669. With Mu Yaja as her backer, she had everything, resources and status. With the name Mu Yaja, no matter how influential she would only be a foil. However, Yin Shirshir did not do that. She was a newbie in the production team. She could have used Mu Yaja's resources, but she did not make it public. She gave the production team a satisfactory answer with her own hard work, diligence, and capability. She was a dark horse among the newbies. Lin Fengtian was even more certain about her. However, after this incident, would Yin Shirshir be able to join the production team again? Lin Fengtian was more concerned about this issue, so he carefully asked for Mu Yaja's opinion. The latter warned him coldly, "I have a piece of advice for you. I'm letting my woman join your show. You should have some foresight." Kissing scenes were still not allowed. At most, they were allowed to borrow the position. Bed scenes were out of the question. Holding hands and hugging, even if it was necessary for filming, there was a limit to it. This was considered a loosening of the rules. To Lin Fengtian, this was a great gift. Lin Fengtian excitedly said, "Thank you, Your Majesty." Mu Yaja asked, "I don't want to see what happened that day a second time." Lin Fengtian immediately explained, "Chairman Mu, you've misunderstood. This is filming, it's work. Everything is necessary for the plot." "Necessary for the plot?" Mu Yaja's voice deepened. "Lin Fengtian, I think you've wasted your time as a director. Can't you tell whether Gu Xingze is acting or revealing his true feelings?" After he finished speaking, he coldly hung up the phone. Lin Fengtian held the phone. His mind went blank for a long time before he sighed in a daze. He could also tell that Gu Xingze's reaction that day did not seem to be acting. He was a director, especially when it came to portraying pure love between a man and a woman. He had seen many top-notch actors. Gu Xingze's superb acting skills were beyond doubt. But no matter how superb her acting skills were, acting was still acting. Any professional filmmaker would be able to tell at a glance whether an actor was acting or revealing his true feelings. Lin Fengtian could tell that Gu Xingze was not acting. He was revealing his true feelings. His true feelings for Yin Shirshir. Mu Yaja also saw it, which was why he lost control that day. Lin Fengtian rushed to the set. Gu Xingze was rushing to film an advertisement. During the break, he mentioned this matter to Gu Xingze. Gu Xingze's expression changed when he heard this. "Director Lin, you worry too much." "I have no other feelings for Yin Shirshir." "Really?" Lin Fengtian was shocked. "I knew it. You're famous for being cold and aloof in the circle. If you said you liked men, I would have believed you. I really don't believe that you like Yin Shirshir." In a sense, Lin Fengtian was a real thick-skinned person. He took his words seriously. Gu Xingze's eyelids drooped slightly as he concealed the desolation that flashed across his eyes. Lin Fengtian couldn't help but praise him. "However, you really scared me that day. Xingze, your acting skills have improved so much compared to when you first entered the film industry. Even I was shocked by your acting skills during that scene in the music room. I couldn't help but get into character. Your eyes, the look in them, the emotional tension was too strong. If I didn't know your acting skills, I would have thought that you had feelings for Yin Shirshir." Chapter 670. The production team returned to normal. Lin Fengtian said that if it were not for her sake, the production team might have been disbanded. Yin Shirshir was stunned when she heard this. "Shirshir, no matter what, the production team is back to normal. When can you be there?" "Tomorrow." Yin Shirshir smiled brightly. The next day, she was ready to go to the production team. The main cast and crew were back in their positions. However, when Yin Shirshir joined the set, everyone's gaze on her became a little strange. Yan Bingqing and Yang Chang's eyes were filled with jealousy as they looked at her. Jealousy? Yin Shirshir was confused by these pairs of eyes and had no idea what was going on. Mu Shi also rushed to the production team in the afternoon. When she saw Yin Shirshir, her expression was a little strange. Yin Shirshir could not help it. "What's wrong with you guys? Why are you all staring at me with such strange eyes?" Mu Shi said embarrassedly, "Shirshir, sorry. You misunderstood me. I didn't expect you to come to the production team for filming. I'm surprised." "Why do you think so?" Cough. It's because you're now the unspeakable goddess in the production team. Everyone wanted to worship her like a goddess. Yin Shirshir did not understand what she meant. What unspeakable goddess? What was all this about? Why was she so confused? Mushi found it funny. Shirshir, you can do whatever you want in the production team now. Who dares to offend you? Under Yin Shirshir's puzzled gaze, Mushi recounted everything to her. It turned out that before she came, Lin Fengtian had gathered everyone for a secret meeting. The topic of the meeting was mostly related to the reorganization of the production team, and one point was mentioned. Previously in the production team, he noticed that many stage and stage managers, as well as many A-list assistants, were more or less finding trouble for Yin Shirshir. Yin Bingqing in particular used her status to bully newbies, assistants, and even extras. All of them had to give her face. Mushi in particular was ostracized by her. Yin Bingqing's incident was heavily criticized. Although he didn't mention her name, he gave her enough face. However, when Lin Fengtian mentioned this, the crew members all guessed who this person was. He was well aware of this. Yin Bingqing loved to ostracize newcomers and bully young actresses. In order to gain the most exposure, it could be said that she would do anything. Yin Bingqing, who was sitting in her seat, had an extremely ugly expression on her face. His face turned green. Lin Fengtian reminded them again. Although Yin Shirshir was a newcomer, she was his exclusive newcomer. Whoever dared to make trouble for Yin Shirshir would be slapping him in the face. Lin Fengtian had the highest status in the crew. Who dared to offend him? He was the famous Yama Scissorhands. Once, an important female lead in his movie tried to play the big shot with him, but he cut that role into a supporting role in a matter of minutes. No one dared to go against him. After all, he had Huan Yu's higher-ups behind him. After this meeting, everyone was in awe of Yin Shirshir and no longer dared to bully her like they did in the past. They were much more polite. As her assistant, Mushi also benefited from this. In the past, she was the most ostracized in the production team. Now no one dared to ostracize her. When Yin Shirshir heard this, her face remained calm, but she was secretly criticizing in her heart. Could all of this have been secretly instructed by Muyaja? Chapter 671. A lot of scenes were lost, so Lin Fengtian hurriedly took care of reshooting. On this day, the editor was busy arranging the footage. Yin Bingqing happened to pass by and walked in. She stood behind him without any change in her expression as she watched him arrange the footage. At the same time, she also wanted to see how she would perform in front of the camera. She was quite confident in her performance. However, it didn't matter if she didn't watch. When she saw that her scenes were much less, Yin Bingqing was stunned. Many scenes of her and many of the supporting roles had been cut out during the editing process. Logically speaking, although she wasn't the main lead, she was still an extremely important character in this drama. Her scenes weren't any less than Yin Shirshir's. However, in these scenes that the editor had arranged, her scenes had been reduced by several times. There were many scenes where she and Yin Shirshir acted together, but all the scenes were given to Yin Shirshir. There were very few scenes that were given to her. There were many important plot segments, but her camera flashed past them with just a few strokes of the pen. It was clearly a very important scene, but all the scenes were given to Yin Shirshir. She estimated in her heart that Yin Shirshir's scenes actually occupied a total of 70% of the scenes. The more Yin Bingqing watched, the angrier she became. The anger in her heart was almost twisted. She had nowhere to vent her anger. Yin Bingqing clenched her fists tightly. Her sharp nails dug into her palms and pierced her skin. She bit her lip hard, turned around and left. Not long after she left, Yin Bingqing hurriedly sent a junior assistant to inquire about it. The editor was almost done with his work. The junior assistant brought over some ice water to relieve the heat. She didn't report her background, but casually led him to this topic. "Sir, have you finished editing all these scenes?" The editor was grateful for her thoughtfulness. Now that his work had come to an end, he had the leisure to chat with her. "It's not done yet. It's just that the scenes that were selected will be re-edited later. I just took a rough look and realized that Yin Shirshir has a lot of scenes." "Oh, Director Lin picked all of these," the editor said ambiguously. The assistant had been working for Yin Bingqing for many years, so he was smart. After chatting for a while, and completely dispelling Yan Bingqing's vigilance, he suddenly cut to the topic. There are several scenes with Yan Bingqing and Yun Shishir. Why is Director Lin only focusing on Yun Shishir's scenes and throwing away Yan Bingqing's scenes? The editor wasn't wary of the probing in her words. Instead, he said bluntly, I was there when Director Lin chose these shots. I watched him choose them. Oh, is there gossip? I say, why are you so nosy? Don't ask about anything in the production team. The editor lit a cigarette and narrowed his eyes. The junior assistant was quite pretty. She acted coquettishly in front of him. The editor couldn't resist and said bluntly, Director Lin said that Yan Bingqing looks too old in some of the scenes. Moreover, she acted as a rebellious high school student like a white lotus. Oh, I see. The junior assistant listened and noted it down in her heart. Moreover, you didn't see those scenes with Yan Bingqing. I can't stand it. Chapter 672. But Yan Bingqing is a big shot after all. She's probably a big shot in a scandal. The editor put out his cigarette and couldn't help but tease. She was packaged by the public relations team behind her. Hyping up the topic and snatching exposure, there was really nothing to say about those methods. That face of hers was truly stunning. But she doesn't have any acting skills. Plus, she doesn't have the talent to be an actress and likes to change the script on her own. If it weren't for the fact that Yan Bingqing has a strong backing and landed in the cast, Director Lin wouldn't have picked her for the role. What about Yun Shishir? When the junior assistant heard this, she felt indignant for her boss. She wanted to use Yun Shishir as a comparison. When the editor heard this, he winked at her and said, You don't know Yun Shishir is now a goddess in the production team. You can't talk about her. Why can't I talk about her? Does she really think she's a big shot? She's just a newcomer. Why can't I talk about her? The junior assistant sneered unhappily. You don't understand this. Yun Shishir probably has some background. I've been with Director Lin for 9 years, and I've never seen Director Lin take so much care of an actress. Look at Gu Xingze. When he first appeared in Director Lin's film, he was also scolded badly by him. Yun Shishir is different. Of course, this newcomer has acting skills and is capable. She's also more photogenic than Yan Bingqing. In Director Lin's eyes, she must be a treasure. Then what do you think of Yan Bingqing's acting skills compared to Yun Shishir's? The editor smiled contemptuously, but couldn't be bothered to comment further. He only spat out 3 words and asked her in return, Can they be compared? The junior assistant returned to the lounge and told Yan Bingqing everything she had found out. She added some details and told Yan Bingqing. Yan Bingqing was so angry that she flipped the table on the spot. This was too much. What did she mean by a white lotus? What did she mean by a vase with bad acting skills? What did she mean by comparing herself to Yun Shishir? Could they be compared? That was too much. Yan Bingqing was so angry that her face was gloomy and ashen. She couldn't wait to rush in front of Yun Shishir and tear this B***tch into pieces, so as to avoid being an eyesore in front of her all day long. She had just debuted, yet she was already able to star in Lin Fengtian's film. Furthermore, she was the female lead. Was she very proud of that? This was not the only thing she hated the most. What kind of dog**t luck did Yun Shishir have? Not only did Lin Fengtian praise her so much, but she even managed to get a gold medal team like Qin Zhou to join her. Over the past 2 days, Yun Shishir's behind-the-scenes footage on Weibo had caused a lot of heated discussions. Yun Shishir's behind-the-scenes photos of her wearing a school uniform once dominated the hot search list. Yun Shishir's performance as Yin Xiachuan satisfied all fans of the original novel's fantasies. Even the author of the original novel reposted the post. This is the Yin Xiachuan in my heart, invincible in youth. Qin Zhou even made use of the resources in his hands to release press releases for several days in a row, wantonly promoting Yun Shishir. In the press releases, he praised Yun Shishir and did not forget to trample on her and Yang Mi, using them as a stepping stone. This Qin Zhou's packaging skills were top-notch, and his methods of promoting were top-notch. Even if the public relations team behind Yan Bingqing did not want to be outdone, and also release press releases to trample on them, they could not withstand Qin Zhou's overwhelming press releases at all. Why? It was because Qin Zhou had close ties with almost all the major media companies. Back then, he had relied on Gu Xing's golden resources accumulated over the past 10 years. Now almost all of them were spent on Yin Shirshir. He spent a lot of money. Chapter 673. Putting this aside, the main point was that with Qin Zhou's status and backing, who would dare to go against him? Yan Bingqing's team had just released a few articles about Yin Shirshir when Qin Zhou ordered his men to replace them. There was no room for negotiation at all. Yan Bingqing, Yang Mi, and the rest were furious, but they did not dare to say anything. Offending Qin Zhou was undoubtedly courting death. Qin Zhou and Gu Xingze had held Huanyu shares in their early years and had a seat on the company's board of directors. They were also part of the company's upper management. If they offended the company's upper management, they could be banned or frozen in a matter of minutes. Yan Bingqing did not dare to go against Qin Zhou. Hence, she allowed the manager to consume her exposure to boost Yin Shirshir's popularity. However, now that even her scenes with Yin Shirshir were edited to such a ridiculous state, Yan Bingqing could no longer sit still. She was too aggrieved. She had never been so aggrieved before. This Yin Shirshir was so capable. A newbie was being held in such high regard. What capabilities did she have to make Qin Zhou support her so much? However, despite Lin Fengtian's repeated orders, she did not dare to make things difficult for Yin Shirshir. The bird that pokes its head out will be shot. Many people were jealous of Yin Shirshir, and there might even be someone who would teach her a lesson. However, it was difficult for her to vent her anger. She could not offend Yin Shirshir, but she could not vent her anger on her assistant, right? Hence, during lunch, Yan Bingqing accidentally splashed the boiling hot tea in her cup onto Mu Shi. Mu Shi screamed in pain. When she lowered her head, her arm was instantly scalded red by the tea. The sun was scorching hot now. The scorching sun shone on her body and arm, causing her to cry aggrievedly. Mu Shi hugged her scalded arm and bit her lower lip tightly. She glared at her with tears in her eyes, but she did not dare to say anything. Yan Bingqing looked down at her from the corner of her eyes and said with a fake smile, "Oh, I didn't do it on purpose. I'm sorry." After he finished speaking, he didn't look at her anymore. He even said regretfully, "If you hadn't bumped into me, my cup wouldn't have flipped over. AI, my precious tribute tea is really pitiful." It was a simple sentence without any sense of guilt. It didn't sound like an apology at all. It was as if her scalding was not worth mentioning at all. It was not even comparable to the tea leaves that she had spilled. She felt extremely aggrieved. She didn't even bump into her. She was clearly the one who had poured the boiling hot tea over him. "How dare you slander me like this?" Mu Shi knew very well that this Yan Bingqing was venting her anger on her, because her limelight had been stolen by Yin Shirshir. This kind of thing was very common in the production team. Moreover, this was not the first time Yan Bingqing vented her anger on her assistant. The strange thing was that she didn't take a detour when she saw Yan Bingqing. Mu Shi's tears kept falling. Yan Bingqing walked to her side and lowered her head with a smile. Her voice was extremely cold. "Go back and tell your boss not to go overboard." Does she really think that she can be unrestrained just because she has Director Lin's support? Mu Shi raised her head with tears streaming down her face and looked at her in disbelief. Yan Bingqing sneered. The threat in her eyes was even more obvious. If she wants to steal my limelight, she should weigh her own weight first. Let her remember that I'm Huanyu's real big sister. If she wants to fight with me for status, she should ask herself if she's worthy. Chapter 674. Yan Bingqing returned to the resting room triumphantly. Now that she had vented her anger, she felt refreshed. When she met a stage supervisor, she was in a good mood and greeted him with a smile. One had to know that Yan Bingqing was famous for being cold and aloof in the crew. She relied on the support of a financial backer, and was used to calling the wind and calling the rain. Therefore, she could do whatever she wanted on the set. She did not give anyone a good look and was cold and cheerless. She was already in a good mood if she did not roll her eyes at them, let alone greet them with a smile. Hence, the stage supervisor could not help but feel flattered and greeted her with a smile. "Sister Bingqing." Yan Bingqing chatted with him for a while. The stage supervisor had something to do. He wanted to quickly prepare the list of extras for the next scene, so he was in a hurry to leave. Yan Bingqing suddenly called out to him. Stop right there. I have something to ask you. When the stage supervisor heard that, he was stunned. He turned around and looked at her strangely. He said politely, Sister Bingqing, what do you want to ask? You can ask directly. Let me ask you. Between me and Yun Shirshir, who is prettier? After saying that, Yan Bingqing flipped her hair, raised her arrogant chin slightly, and cast a sidelong glance at him. That look was too seductive. The stage supervisor was a little mesmerized. Yan Bingqing had a pair of electrifying eyes. She was a natural seductress. However, when he came back to his senses and heard what Yan Bingqing had asked, he was stunned. This question really stumped him. This was the first time he had been put in such a difficult position. If he did not answer this question well, he would offend both sides. There was no perfect answer. If he were to say that Yan Bingqing was prettier than Yun Shirshir, right? If his words were to reach Yun Shirshir, he would undoubtedly offend Yun Shirshir. If he were to say that Yun Shirshir was prettier than Yan Bingqing in front of her, he would probably be chased out of the house immediately. If he dared to go against Yan Bingqing, he would definitely lose his job. But the key point was that he didn't dare to offend Yun Shirshir. He was also present at the scene in the music room that day. Therefore, he could more or less find out who the man who took Yun Shirshir away that night was. A person that even Lin Fengtian was in awe of must be a big shot. After that, he finally managed to find out the identity of that big shot. The president of Dishing Financial Group, Mu Yaja. He was just a small stage supervisor, so naturally, he had never seen such a big shot like Mu Yaja. There was no doubt that Yun Shirshir had a close relationship with him. Those who worked in the film set were naturally shrewd people who knew better than to offend others. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to survive if he had some background. The stage supervisor was momentarily at a loss as to how to answer. His slow response annoyed Yan Bingqing. Is this question difficult to answer? Or are you saying that Yun Shirshir is prettier than me? Sister Bingqing, you're making things difficult for me. Aren't you making things difficult for me? The stage supervisor stammered. I like Sister Bingqing the most. She's beautiful and elegant, just like a high and mighty goddess. Then can't you just answer me directly? Say that I'm prettier than Yun Shirshir. Say it. I don't dare. What's there to be afraid of? Yan Bingqing sneered. Yun Shirshir is just a newcomer. Are you afraid of a newcomer? Sister Bingqing, it's not a matter of whether I'm afraid or not. I really don't dare to offend Yun Shirshir. The stage supervisor decided to tell the truth. What do you mean? Chapter 675. In Yan Bingqing's eyes, Yun Shirshir was undoubtedly a pushover. If not for Qin Zhou behind her, she would have gotten rid of this thorn in her flesh long ago. The production assistant gritted his teeth and pleaded, Sister Bingqing, in my heart, you're definitely the most beautiful goddess. Yet, you insist on making a comparison between Sister Bingqing and Yun Shirshir. How am I supposed to live in this world? He wiped away his cold sweat. He had spoken against his conscience. Compared to Yan Bingqing, he liked Yun Shirshir more. Disregarding everything else and purely comparing character, Yun Shirshir was a very easy celebrity to get along with. Although she was a newbie, there were many newbies who relied on their background to throw their weight around. However, Yun Shirshir was not like that. On set, she was modest and gentle, very polite, and very particular about harmony. Even when dealing with a small production assistant, she would treat him with a smile. Unlike Yan Bingqing and Yang Mi, she was a little impatient. It happened to be a hot summer these few days. Seeing that the production assistant and cameraman were exposed to the scorching sun, she ordered a few boxes of ice water from her own pocket and got Mushi to hand them out one by one. Everyone had a bottle of ice water to relieve the heat. One had to know that such behavior in the production team was very embarrassing. Most celebrities had the airs of a celebrity. For example, Gu Xingzi. Although his character was not bad, he rarely interacted with small characters like them. After all, a celebrity's image had to be maintained. Yun Shirshir, on the other hand, did not have the airs of a big shot. Even if he was a small production assistant, she would fight with him. Everyone really liked Yun Shirshir. In terms of appearance, he did not like to compare too much. One was seductive, and the other was pure. One was mature, and the other was young. In his eyes, Yin Shishir's beauty had a kind of pure vitality. It was pure and natural, and was not pretentious at all. Moreover, with makeup, her facial features could adapt to the challenge of any role. The reason Yan Bingqing's acting path was very narrow was that no matter what she acted in, she always had an overly flirtatious face. She was clearly playing the role of a queen, but she acted as a silly and sweet white lotus. Yin Shishir had a wide range of acting skills. First of all, her facial features could be adapted to any kind of makeup, and it didn't look out of place at all. Lin Fengtian was extremely picky, but he was full of praise for Yin Shishir. Amidst the awkward atmosphere, one of Yan Bingqing's trusted aides, whom she had planted beside Yang Mi, ran over and sent the stage supervisor away. She cautiously asked, "Sister Bingqing, earlier, did you splash tea on Yin Shishir's assistant?" "How did you know?" Yan Bingqing didn't show the slightest bit of fear on her face. Instead, she smiled calmly and said, "I didn't do it on purpose. What are you making a fuss about?" "I just heard that the little assistant had blisters on her hands. But Yin Shishir is still filming and hasn't returned yet, so she doesn't know yet. So what if she knows?" Yan Bingqing didn't think much of it. "Do you think she'll eat me up?" "Sister Bingqing, if you ask me, you'd better hurry and apologize to Mu Shi." "What?" Yan Bingqing widened her eyes and laughed in anger. "You want me to apologize to a little assistant?" "There's no choice. I'm just reminding you out of goodwill." That person didn't dare to say it out loud, and could only remind her carefully. "You weren't there that day, but I was. Yin Shishir is a newbie, and her background is a little unfavorable. Sister Bingqing, you'd better not offend her. In terms of background, how can she be compared to me?" Chapter 676. That person only shook her head and said ambiguously, "It's hard to say." Yan Bingqing quickly asked, "What do you mean by that?" However, this person was unwilling to say more. Yan Bingqing, on the other hand, did not think much of it. No matter how big her background was, could it be bigger than the sky? She had Yang Shouqing backing her up. In the afternoon, Yin Shishir's scenes ended. When she returned to the waiting room, she saw Mu Shi arranging her makeup tools. Her eyes were red. Seeing her return, she immediately forced a smile and said, "Shishir, you're back. What happened to you?" Yin Shishir's mind was extremely sensitive. She could tell at a glance that something was wrong with her face. She walked over and looked at her face up close, only to find that her eyes were unbelievably swollen. She frowned and asked with concern, "Why are you crying?" "No." Mu Shi quickly turned her face away, not wanting her to see it. There were only a few reasons. Yin Shishir was so good to her. Seeing that she was being bullied by Yan Bingqing, she would definitely come to her door to argue. She did not want Yin Shishir to offend Yan Bingqing because of her. There was no need for that, was there? It was just a small injury on her arm. After washing it with cold water, it was much better. It was not a big area, so it would be fine after the blisters subsided. Mu Shi only wanted to keep the peace. Yin Shishir was slightly displeased when she saw her evasive expression. Mu, what's wrong with you? Why do you look a little weird? Who bullied you? Tell me directly." Mu Shi hurriedly shook her head. "No. Don't think too much. Liar. Look at you, your eyes are swollen. You must have been bullied and cried." Yin Shishir pushed her hair away with heartache, but from the corner of her eye, she saw that her sleeve was tightly covering her arm. It was a hot day. In the past, her sleeves would be rolled up at this time. Now one of her arms was tightly covered. Yin Shishir feels strange. She grabs Lin Luoran's arm and coincidentally holds the place where Lin Luoran was burned. Mu Shi shuddered in pain, but she seemed to be holding it in and only let out a muffled groan. He retracted his arm. Yin Shishir's heart skipped a beat. She hurriedly lifted her arm up to take a look, only to see that it was scalded red. Startled, she immediately asked, "What's going on?" "I'm fine. I accidentally scalded myself." "Who did this?" Yin Shishir raised her voice slightly. Mu Shi's body trembled. Seeing that she was angry, she had no choice but to confess everything that had happened earlier. Yin Shishir was so angry that her face turned ugly. How can she be so outrageous? Yan Bingqing's temper has always been like this. Whenever something doesn't go her way, She will lose her temper. Everyone is already used to it. Sure. Do you still remember that assistant I mentioned to you before? She directly splashed me with boiling water and scalded a layer of my skin. But what can you do? Yan Bingqing has a sugar daddy backing her. No one can afford to offend her. She can be so lawless just because she has someone backing her. Yin Shishir found it a little unreasonable. This is too much. It's simply too much. Yes. No one dares to offend her though. It's already considered good that I was splashed with tea by her. She's used to being lawless and arrogant. You can bully me. You can't bully my people. Yin Shishir pulled her hand and walked out. Mushi exclaimed. Shishir, where are you going? Chapter 677. She had only been away for half a day, yet she had already dared to bully her. Yan Bingqing was too much of a bully. Mushi stubbornly refused to leave, and repeatedly told her to forget about it. Sure, we don't have to offend her. Yan Bingqing's influence is quite big. Quite a few young actresses are suppressed by her. She usually associates with many rich and powerful young masters. We can't win against her. I'm not going to become enemies with her. I'm just trying to reason with her, Yin Shishir said unhappily. Reason? Mushi laughed and said helplessly. This industry is like this. There's no reason. It only cares about whether you have the ability, power, background, backing, and resources. People in this industry only care about this. Reason is a joke in their eyes. I don't want to cause trouble for you. Since I've chosen this job, I'm already mentally prepared. Alright, I have my own opinions. No matter what, she has to apologize to you today. With that, Yin Shishir held her hand and walked toward Yan Bingqing's lounge. Mushi followed behind and could not help but feel that Yin Shishir's image had suddenly become bigger. It was not that she had never been an assistant to other celebrities. The so-called assistant could be said to be livestock that worked like a cow or a horse. If a celebrity was unhappy, they could beat or scold her as they wished. Being an assistant was tough. On the surface, it seemed to be glorious and could be in the same frame as many celebrities and be in close contact with them. But in reality, being an assistant was the most difficult and the most vulnerable. There was no such thing as a celebrity who truly treated you as a friend. However, Yin Shishir's appearance had shattered her understanding. It turned out that there was someone as amiable as Yin Shishir among celebrities. Mushi was indescribably grateful to Yin Shishir. Yan Bingqing's lounge was a VIP lounge that she had designated. It was luxurious and high-end, even a grade higher than Yin Shishir's. Yan Bingqing was very particular about the equipment on set, and had strict requirements. This lounge was originally prepared for Yin Shishir, but Yan Bingqing snatched it away. Yin Shishir didn't care and gave it away. Anyway, it was just a lounge. To her, it didn't matter at all. At the entrance of the lounge, Yin Shishir walked in as if there was no one else around. Yan Bingqing, who was in the midst of putting on makeup, had a rough idea of what was going on when she saw her walking in with Mushi. She had long expected this to happen. She wasn't afraid that Yin Shishir would come looking for her. Since she was here, she could give her a show of strength and teach her a lesson. Yan Bingqing smiled and asked, "What's wrong? Sister Bingqing, are you busy?" Yin Shishir was not as angry as the actress had imagined her to be. Instead, she gave her an amiable smile and behaved elegantly. It was a kind of elegance that seemed to come from a noble's bones. It was different from Yan Bingqing's aura. The former's aura was natural, while the latter's was just a combination of makeup and scripts. When the two stood together, it was obvious who was superior. Yan Bingqing was stunned for a moment before replying, "I'm not busy." She didn't realize that her aura had been greatly suppressed by Yin Shishir's frown and smile. "It's like this. I just came back from filming and saw that my assistant's arm was scalded. Although she didn't say anything to me, I heard from some people present that you were the one who splashed it. I want to ask what exactly happened." Chapter 678. Yan Bingqing said plainly as she slowly stood up. Her posture was elegant and enchanting as if she were a queen, high and mighty. She walked up to Yin Shishir and looked down at her condescendingly. Clearly, she was disdainful of her confrontation. "Yo, are you a saint? You actually came to confront me over an assistant. Why? So what if I did it?" As Yan Bingqing said this, Her eyes turned exceptionally vicious. I did it on purpose. So what? The provocation on her face seemed to be silently declaring, even if you are my assistant, what can you do to me? Yin Shishir narrowed her eyes as a trace of restrained anger surfaced in her eyes. This Yin Bingqing is indeed targeting me, so she laid her hands on my assistant. How can she be so ruthless? Behind her, Mushi saw Yin Bingqing's serious and provocative expression. From the corner of her eye, she caught sight of Yin Shishir's suppressed anger, and was about to explode. Afraid that things would blow up, she kept tugging at her assistant's hand and whispered, "Let's go. Let's go." She didn't want to stir up trouble. Yin Bingqing raised her eyes and saw her assistant's nervous expression. She could not help but laugh. "Look, your assistant is asking you to leave quickly. Even she knows not to offend me easily. You're the only one who doesn't take me seriously." Upon hearing this, Yin Shishir raised a brow mockingly. "Yin Shishir, this is just a piece of advice. I'm warning you. Even if you have Director Lin's favor, don't bully others too much. So what if you're the female lead? So what if you're very popular now? Let me tell you, on the set, you're the junior, and I'm the senior. Please don't put on such a high and mighty attitude all day long. I'm so annoyed just looking at you." Yin Bingqing was talking to herself, but was suddenly interrupted by Yin Shishir's sneer. Yin Bingqing's face froze, but she heard Yin Shishir mocking. "I heard that you entered the entertainment industry before graduating from secondary school." "What do you mean?" Yin Bingqing's heart skipped a beat. Her education level was not high, and her education level was low. She had always felt as if there was a fishbone stuck in her throat. She announced to the public that she was a university graduate. However, everyone in the industry knew that her academic qualifications were fake. Many people laughed at her, saying that she had big breasts but no brains. She really didn't have the ability to study. Yin Shishir smiled and said, "Education shouldn't be used to criticize people. Some people don't have high education, but they are still very cultured. But today, I have seen it for myself. Yin Bingqing, you really should study more. Otherwise, with your IQ and EQ, it would be really difficult to communicate with you." "You." Yin Shishir smiled faintly. "It's really scary to be uncultured." Yin Bingqing was poked in her sore spot by her words. Her face changed abruptly, and she lost her voice in anger. Yin Shishir continued to press her. "Is it because I don't flatter you like others?" Yin Bingqing was so angry that she could not speak. Zhenjin was really pissed off. "Yin Shishir, how dare you?" "Hey Yin Bingqing, are you sick?" Yin Shishir interrupted her impatiently. "What?" Yin Shishir did not avoid the viciousness in her eyes and said bluntly, "I think you're sick. A very serious princess syndrome." Yin Bingqing was stunned. This B**TCH actually said that I have princess syndrome. Mushi, who was behind her, was completely stunned. She did not expect that Yin Shishir, who usually looked gentle and elegant, would be so venomous once she got angry. Chapter 679. Yin Shishir slowly took a step closer to her and sneered. Some people are pampered and arrogant because they were born as a princess doted on by everyone. Some people, on the other hand, are pretentious and arrogant. They are clearly not princesses, yet they still want to have the bad temper of one. This is called princess syndrome. Do you understand? Yin Bingqing's face contorted in anger as she glared at her with gritted teeth. Yin Shishir stared into her eyes and said in a tone that brooked no argument, "Apologize to her." "Why should I?" Yin Bingqing apologized to her. "Yin Shishir, don't go overboard. You're the one who's going overboard." Yin Shishir raised her chin haughtily and enunciated each word clearly. "Apologize to her." "Shut up." Yin Bingqing abruptly raised her hand and ruthlessly slapped her face. Mushi could not help but cry out in alarm when she saw this. Yin Shishir sneered, grabbed her wrist, and slapped her back. Pa. It wasn't a heavy sound, but it was clear and loud enough. "This slap is mine." Her face was calm and her tone was unusually calm, but between the lines, there was an inviolable majesty. Yin Bingqing was stunned. While she was in a daze, Yin Shishir walked to the table, picked up a cup of cold water, and returned to Yin Bingqing. She raised her wrist and splashed the water on her face. Crash. The water splashed on Yen Bingqing's freshly made-up face and drenched it. The water flowed along her eyelashes, the tip of her nose, and dripped down her cheeks. Yen Bingqing was caught off guard when the water splashed on her face. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes, letting the water drip down. Yin Shishir slowly said, "This is for Mu Shi." With that, she ignored the anger on Yen Bingqing's face and walked away with Mu Shi. Yen Bingqing was so angry that her whole body trembled. The assistant behind her quickly picked up a towel and hurriedly wiped the water on her face. This wipe ruined more than half of the makeup she had put on. The assistant was careful, but she still accidentally hurt her. Yen Bingqing angrily pushed them aside and shouted, "Get lost! Get lost! All of you get lost!" The assistants looked at each other and then scrambled away, afraid that Yen Bingqing would be implicated in her anger. She was the only one left in the spacious lounge. Yen Bingqing sat in front of the dressing mirror and looked at herself. Her face was in a terrible state, and her clothes were drenched. The makeup on her face was done in less than an hour. As for the clothes on her body, she had to borrow them from the costume team, thinking that she still had to act in the next scene. This Yin Shishir was clearly trying to embarrass her. Good. Very good. Yin Shishir, just you wait. Back in the lounge, Mushi was still in a state of shock. She looked at Yin Shishir, who was sitting in front of the mirror with a calm face. Thinking of the scene earlier, she could not help but tremble in fear. Seeing Yin Shishir's calm face, she could not help but tremble. "Shishir, aren't you afraid?" "Afraid of what?" Yin Shishir was confused. "Afraid that Yen Bingqing will take revenge on you." Yin Shishir smiled, thinking that she was making a mountain out of a molehill. "Yen Bingqing is not a monster. Will she eat me?" Chapter 680. "I know." Yin Shishir put down the powder in her hand and looked at her seriously. "I know what kind of person Yen Bingqing is, so I don't offend her easily. Mu Shi, you should know that I'm not someone who likes to stir up trouble. If I can give in, I'll give in." Hence, when Yen Bingqing wanted to occupy her waiting room, Yin Shishir did not fight with her and chose to take a step back. Yen Bingqing had repeatedly made things difficult for her, ostracized her, and badmouthed her. She did not argue with her either. She just wanted to finish filming in peace. That was all. However, this doesn't mean that I'm weak. I have my principles too. Yin Shishir looked at her assistant and said lightly, "She can go against me, but I can't tolerate it when she implicates the people around me." Mushi was deeply shocked by her serious words. "Perhaps in the eyes of many, I seem to be a weak person. But whether I'm weak or timid, everyone has a reverse scale." She was touched, but she could not hide the worry on her face. "But what if she takes revenge on you?" Shishir, you don't have to offend such a person for me. What will you do if she takes revenge on you?" "I'll deal with whatever comes my way," Yin Shishir said lightly. Mushi looked at her calmly and worriedly. There was a scene in the afternoon between Yin Shishir and Yen Bingqing. However, Yen Bingqing did not arrive after a long time. Lin Fengtian waited for a long time, but still did not see her. He was so angry that he almost cut off the scene. In the end, Yen Bingqing's assistant came in a hurry to report that Yen Bingqing had a fever. Fever? Lin Fengtian cursed a few times. He had only heard of people suffering from heatstroke in this weather. He had never heard of a fever. He did not know what she was up to now. Forget it, forget it. Lin Fengtian hurriedly arranged for the next scene. Because Yen Bingqing was sick, this scene could only be postponed. Yin Shishir frowned suspiciously. She didn't know what Yen Bingqing was up to. Could it be that she had caught a cold and had a fever after splashing a cup of water on her? He was too weak to stand up to a gust of wind? Mushi whispered into her ear. Shishir, maybe she didn't have time to touch up her makeup and got her clothes wet. She's afraid that the director will blame her, so she found an excuse. Only then did Yin Shishir come to a realization. After filming in the afternoon, Lin Fengtian announced the end of the day's filming because the weather was too hot. For the past few days, the filming had been going very smoothly. Lin Fengtian was in a good mood and suggested that he invite Gu Xingze and Yin Shishir to have a meal together. He felt that ever since that incident, there was something strange between the two of them. Everyone was very engrossed in filming, but after filming, Gu Xingze and Yin Shishir had almost zero interaction. Even when filming, Gu Xingze was absent-minded from time to time, sometimes forgetting his lines. Although these were small mistakes, Lin Fengtian noticed them. Thus, he pondered for a meal to let the two familiarize themselves with each other. Yin Shishir apologetically refused. "Director Lin, I'm sorry. I still have something to do back home." "What is it?" I still have to take care of my father when I get back." In fact, Yin Yeqing had rushed back to his hometown to attend the funeral. She was worried about leaving the little lad alone at home. Although Li Hanlin was fetching him to school, it was rare for it to end so early, so she wanted to rush back to give him a surprise. Naturally, she could not be frank with Lin Fengtian about this. Chapter 681. When they reached home, Yin Shishir purposely walked softly in order to give little Munchkin a surprise. The moment she entered the house, she saw the school bag on the sofa. Yin Shishir walked into the kitchen and didn't see little Munchkin. Instead, she saw the groceries she had bought from the market placed on the countertop. She glanced at it. It was a sumptuous meal of meat and vegetables. Yin Shishir walked to the study and pushed the door open. Little Munchkin was scrolling through Weibo in the study. These 2 days he had been paying attention to the official Weibo of the Green Apple. Mommy left early and returned late because of filming. He rarely had the time to spend with Mommy like before. He could only follow Mommy's progress on the set through the behind-the-scenes photos that were posted on Weibo. Hearing the door open, he looked up in shock. When he saw that it was Yin Shishir, he was surprised. "Mommy, you're back." As he spoke, he flew into her warm embrace. "Mommy, you missed you so much." "Little fool, Mommy and you haven't seen each other for a day." Yin Shishir scratched his nose, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Yu lifted his little face and replied in all seriousness. "How could that be? Why do I feel like I haven't seen Mommy for a year? Is it that exaggerated? It's called a day feels like a year." "Mommy is stupid." Yu smiled gently and planted a kiss on her cheek. "Mommy, why are you back so early today?" "Because I missed my Yu." Yin Shishir couldn't help but pinch his cheeks. They were chubby. They felt good. She couldn't help but pinch them a few more times. Little Munchkin didn't look aggrieved at all. He looked at her with a smile as if he was an adorable doll, obediently allowing her to do whatever she wanted to him. Little Munchkin seemed to have put on some weight recently. At least his face wasn't as thin as before. It was chubby and cute. "Aya, how can my Yu be so cute?" Yin Shishir rubbed her face against his. Little Munchkin's watery eyes curved into crescents as he enjoyed this intimacy. If it was possible, he wouldn't get sick of it even if his mommy pinched his face for 1,000 years or even 10,000 years. "It's because Mommy is so beautiful, so beautiful. Yu inherited Mommy's beautiful genes. That's why Yu is so cute." With this compliment, Yin Shishir was so proud that she could fly to the sky. She couldn't help but rub his hair. "Our Yu is so sweet. Mommy loves you so much." Hehe. Yu emphasized seriously. "Yu is telling the truth. All right. Be good. Then Mommy will go watch some TV first. When Yu is done making dinner, you can massage Mommy's shoulders." Yin Shishir nodded. Yin Tianyu then went straight to the kitchen. Yin Shishir sat on the sofa and watched TV for a while. Coincidentally, she switched to an entertainment channel, which was broadcasting an interview with an entertainment reporter on set for The Green Apple. When the interview came to Yan Bingqing, the reporter asked a sharp and piercing question. "Yan Bingqing, many fans on Weibo are comparing you with Yin Shishir. What do you think of this?" Yan Bingqing faced the camera with undisguised arrogance and contempt. She retorted, "You're asking me what I think, and I'm asking you what you think. What's there to compare?" The reporter said, "I think this comparison is very impolite." Chapter 682. Yin Shishir's face turned cold. She picked up the remote control and turned off the TV. How annoying. Forget it. At least out of sight, out of mind. She walked to the kitchen. Just as she walked in, she saw the pot on the gas stove heating up. Yu was holding a kitchen knife, and after a series of clanging sounds, he deftly cut the scallions into small pieces and threw them into the pot together with the garlic cloves. He then skillfully stir-fried them. Yin Shishir was dumbfounded by the sight. Every time she saw you use superb knife skills, she would be shocked. After a while, a fragrant aroma wafted out. Yin Shirshir smelled it intoxicatedly, and her tightly knitted brows relaxed a little. With the children at home, everything was fine. Her greatest fortune was giving birth to Yu Yu and Xiaoyichen, these two babies. Yu Yu especially was the little god of warmth. No matter what upset her outside, when she saw Yu Yu's bright smile at home, all her unhappiness and annoyance would quickly dissipate. Her little god of warmth seemed to have mastered some magical magic. He always had the ability to disperse her negative emotions. How nice! This was probably the so-called happiness. Yin Shirshir did not know how other children of this age were like, but she felt that Yu Yu was only 7 years old. Was he too precocious? Yin Shirshir was deep in thought. Was she not a good mother? While she was deep in thought, Yin Tianyu had finished cooking a dish. When he turned around, he saw her standing at the door with a strange look on her face. He could not help but raise a brow. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Yin Shirshir came back to her senses at once. Nothing. Did I disturb you?" The corner of his lips twitched. "No, it's just that the kitchen reeks of oil and fumes. Mommy should go out, or else you'll become a haggard old woman." "Oh." Yin Shirshir was amused by him. "What haggard old woman? Aren't you afraid that you'll be affected by the smoke?" Yin Tianyu smiled elegantly without saying a word, but his eyes seemed to say, "Who asked me to be so unlucky to have a mommy who is not good at housework?" Yin Shirshir was shocked by his gaze. Hey, I protest. You're obviously mocking mommy with that look in your eyes. But Yu Yu doesn't dislike mommy for that." As he spoke, he picked up the vegetables at the side and poured some water to wash them carefully. "Didn't Yu Yu say this before? Mommy is in charge of being beautiful and Yu Yu is in charge of raising the family." When Yin Shirshir heard this, she didn't know why. Even though it was clearly a joke, she vaguely felt guilty towards Yu Yu. Hence, she walked behind Yu Yu and hugged his soft body. "Yu Yu, actually, mommy also thinks that I'm not good enough." Yu Yu was startled and immediately retorted, "Who said that? Who said bad things about mommy?" "It must be Muyaja. That man must have accused mommy of being irresponsible in front of mommy." At this moment, a certain man in the Mu Group CEO's office sneezed elegantly. He was shot in the crossfire. Yin Shirshir shook her head. "Yu Yu, you don't have to cook anymore. Let mommy do it." "No." Yu Yu rejected her outright. "Huh. Why?" Yin Shirshir was baffled. "Mommy's cooking is actually very delicious. It's just that sometimes mommy's cooking will be a little substandard. It's just that sometimes." She earnestly defended herself. Yu Yu, however, said, "Yu Yu thinks that it's a very blissful thing to let mommy eat Yu Yu's cooking." Huh. Yin Shirshir was stunned. Chapter 683. As he spoke, he turned around and hugged her waist with a gentle smile. "To capture mommy's heart, you have to start from her stomach. That way mommy will rely on Yu Yu. She can't leave Yu Yu." In his world, more often than not, he would experience the intrigue of others, the darkness of the world, and even the bloodshed of the world, much earlier than other children. His heart seemed to be divided into two extremes. On one side, he was scheming, dark, and had the world in his hands. On the other side, he was naive, kind, and even pure. However, this side of him was only for Yin Shirshir. It could be said that in his heart, his mommy was the last piece of pure land. He also tried his best to protect her and not let her be tainted by any trace of darkness in this world. He did his best to protect this piece of pure land. In front of Yin Shirshir, he always maintained the most innocent and pure side of a child. He wanted his mommy to rely on him and not leave him. This way, his mommy would be with him forever. Yin Shirshir could not help laughing. "Yu Yu, baby, even if the food you cook isn't good, mommy won't leave Yu Yu." "But there are clearly many people fighting with Yu Yu for mommy." Yu Yu complained unhappily. Xiao Yichen was one of them. Mu Yaja was one of them too. Even Gu Xingze had thoughts about his mommy. He felt uneasy. On one hand, he rationally believed that there should be someone by his mommy's side to accompany her for the rest of her life. On the other hand, he naively thought that it was enough for his mommy to have him. He could give his mommy whatever she wanted. Was this not enough? It was extremely contradictory. He could not learn to let go freely and watch his mommy fall into someone else's arms. Wasn't this kind of thinking morbid? Yu was worried. Sometimes he felt that his possessiveness was too strong. He knew that this kind of thinking was irrational and unrealistic, but he could not control himself. He was a little conflicted. Mommy was his family. He could give her love, but he could not give her the love of a lover. He shouldn't be so selfish. This was undoubtedly kidnapping. Yin Tianyu turned around, picked up the knife again, and slowly sliced the meat. But his mind was still stubbornly mulling over this question. His mind was in a mess, muddle-headed. His thoughts were in a mess, and he didn't pay attention to the movements of his hands. In a moment of carelessness, he accidentally cut his finger. Yu was still immersed in his thoughts and did not notice the sharp pain coming from his fingertips. When he came back to his senses, he lowered his head and saw that the chopping board was already dyed red. Sensing the sharp pain coming from his hand, he looked at his fingertips in a daze. Blood was already flowing out. Yin Tianyu's lips parted, but he remained silent. He didn't feel much pain. Startled, Yin Shirshir hurriedly grabbed his hand to take a closer look. Fortunately, the wound was not deep and was only a shallow cut. She cleaned the wound for him, took out a bandage and bandaged it for him. Why were you so careless? Yin Shirshir asked with a frown. Yu was startled and shook his head. He was distracted and thinking about something just now, so he did not pay attention. Go sit on the sofa first. Leave the rest to mommy, Yin Shirshir said as she carried Yu to the sofa. Yu pursed his lips and nodded obediently. Chapter 684. After serving the dishes, Yu sat at the dining table and looked at the sumptuous spread on the table with a blissful smile. Yin Shirshir was wearing the same teddy bear apron as Yin Tianyu's. This was personally chosen by Yu. He liked this design very much. Just as Yin Shirshir sat down at the table, the doorbell rang. The mother-son pair looked at each other strangely. Who could it be? Father? A few days ago, he went back to his hometown for a funeral and said that he would only be back half a month later. Could he be back early now? Yin Shirshir got up and walked to the door. Just as she opened it, a cute little head poked in. Xiao Yichen poked his head in first, as if to inquire about the situation. When he looked up, he bumped into Yin Shirshir, who was standing at the door in surprise. He opened his mouth and wanted to call out mommy, but he had always been a dull and shy person. He didn't know how to play tricks or act cute, so he couldn't force a word out of his mouth even after a long time. Xiao Yichen could not help feeling a little embarrassed. He had clearly prepared himself mentally. Even if he did not utter a single syllable, from the way his lips moved, it was clear that he was calling out mommy. Yin Shirshir saw it. She could not help laughing. This child was quite shy. The little lad's sudden visit surprised her, but more than that, she was delighted. Why are you here? Yin Tianyu heard the commotion, and could not help turning his head to take a look. When he saw that it was Xiao Yichen, the satisfied smile on his face faded a little. Why was it him? Muichen. Why was he here? Muichen walked in obediently, and Muyaja followed closely behind. A certain man said righteously, I wanted to bring Xiao Yichen to visit the set, but I received news that filming ended early today. Subtext. That's why I brought the child here to freeload. Yu gritted her teeth in anger. This father and son pair were blatantly freeloading. Shameless. She looked at Muyaja's relaxed expression. Had the Mu Group's network been fixed? It seemed that he had been too lenient last time. In just a few days, it had been repaired. Next time, he would not be so lenient. At the thought of Muyaja's black-bellied expression when he threatened him previously, Yin Tianyu bit down hard on his chopsticks in extreme displeasure. Muyaja glanced at Yin Tianyu the moment he stepped through the door. As if to provoke him, he raised a brow and said coldly, one day. His words were filled with provocation. Yin Shirshir and Muichen were both confused. Obviously, they didn't know what he meant by that. Yin Tianyu understood though. One day. It was repaired in just one day. This was a provocation. Sure. Was this man issuing him a challenge? If that was the case, he would destroy the Mu Group's network later, and see what he could do about it. Muyaja seemed to have seen through his thoughts. With a devilish smile, his eyes taunted him. Try it. The father and son stared at each other in the air. Instantly, sparks flew and smoke filled the air. Both men's auras were unbelievably strong. That terrifying aura instantly spread to every corner of the living room. Even Yun Shirshir could feel the silent confrontation between the father and son, which was filled with smoke. It was too scary. Chapter 685. She said that she wanted to see Xiao Yichen and make up for Xiao Yichen's childhood where he lacked motherly love. Mu Yaja then brought the little guy over. Xiao Yichen's arrival was unexpected and, at the same time, elated. Yu Yu, on the other hand, was unhappy. Even after exchanging pleasantries, Yu Yu's gaze on Xiao Yichen remained apathetic. Yun Shirshir broke out in a cold sweat. Xiao Yichen, are you hungry? Do you want to eat first? Xiao Yichen shyly pursed his lips and nodded. Yun Shirshir then carried Xiao Yichen to the dining table. Alas, the moment her hands picked up little Yichen, something happened. Yun Tianyo's gaze instantly shifted to Xiao Yichen. Stare, like a tiger eyeing its prey. Even though Xiao Yichen did not see Yun Tianyo's frosty gaze, he could still feel the immense pressure. It was like a sharp stab in his back. It was as if countless needles were pricking his body. Xiao Yichen shuddered all of a sudden. Yun Shirshir was a little helpless and could not help casting an innocent look at Yun Tianyu. Seeing his mother pleading with him with her eyes, Yu Yu restrained himself a little. However, he still laid out a condition. Mommy, sit beside Yu Yu. He patted the seat beside him. Yun Shirshir immediately sat beside him. She felt helpless. She knew that her Yu Yu was jealous. In a way, he had inherited his father's ruthlessness and overbearingness when jealous. There was no doubt that he was exactly the same. One look and one could tell that he was his biological son. Yun Shirshir clapped her hands. All right, let's eat. Then there was an awkward silence. The dining table had become a chaotic battlefield between the father and son. The gazes of the three men constantly crossed over the dining table. The atmosphere suddenly plummeted and turned into an ice cellar. It would not be an exaggeration to describe it as the glint of swords and the smell of gunpowder. Her smile froze at the corner of her mouth. Yun Shirshir's smile turned cold as she watched the father and son cross gazes. She broke out in a cold sweat. Did they have to be like this? They were clearly father and son. They were father and son. Why were their eyes turning red the moment they met like enemies? Yun Shirshir turned to look at the other's eyes and laughed helplessly. Yu Yu. Let's eat, she said. Yu Yu. Let's eat, Mommy. Yu Yu pointed at Mu Yaja and complained. This uncle is glaring at me fiercely. You use you, you use you, you use you. You use of you, you, you. You use. He only knew how to complain. Yun Shirshir was naturally on Yu Yu's side. She raised her head and gave Mu Yaja a warning look. Mu Yaja, that's enough. Eat properly. Mu Yaja did not say a word and merely raised a brow. He was really wronged. This brat was clearly abusing his power to bully others. Yun Tianyu suddenly acted coquettishly at the side. Mommy, feed you. Yun Shirshir nodded and took his mini rice bowl. Mu Yichen also acted coquettishly at the side. I want to feed too. Me too. Mu Yaja also joined in. Yun Shirshir rolled her eyes helplessly. Hey, that's enough. Do you think I have 3 heads and 6 arms? Yun Tianyu said angrily. Mommy, don't bother about them. Mu Yichen only kept blinking innocently and pitifully at Yun Shirshir. Every pitiful look was undoubtedly a blow to her heart. Yun Shirshir could not help feeling sorry for him. Mu Yaja said, Xiao Yichen, Mommy won't feed you. Daddy will feed you. Xiao Yichen pitifully cried, Woo! I don't want Daddy to feed me. Chapter 686. Mommy. The atmosphere froze for a moment. Everyone was taken aback. Xiao Yichen realized that he had inadvertently called out to her. He pursed his lips shyly and innocently knitted his brows. Yun Tianyu stared at Xiao Yichen in a daze. His call was undoubtedly like a heart-piercing arrow that made Yun Shirshir lose her ability to resist. There was no doubt that she was a mother. Even if her heart was as hard as a rock, she would still be defeated when her child called out to her softly. Yun Shirshir smiled and said gently, Okay. Mommy, feed him. Hence she got up, walked over to Xiao Yichen's seat, and sat down. Yu Yu could only watch helplessly as Yun Shirshir picked up a spoon and patiently fed Xiao Yichen. Xiao Yichen took a bite and widened his eyes in surprise. He was obviously stunned by the deliciousness and exclaimed, "Wow! It's so delicious!" Yin Shishir proudly said, "Tonight's dinner was all prepared by Yu." As soon as she said that, Muyaja, who had just taken a bite of the glutinous rice and roasted chicken, froze again. Were these dishes Yin Tianyou's handiwork? It was simply unbelievable. Disregarding the exquisite appearance, just the taste alone was definitely comparable to that of a star-rated chef. It was even better than that. It was no wonder that Yin Shishir had boasted to him that Yin Tianyou's culinary skills were the best. Now, it seemed that her praise was not exaggerated. His culinary skills were indeed excellent. Still, Muyaja looked up suspiciously at Yin Tianyou's small hand holding the chopsticks. It was pink, tender, and chubby. It was hard to imagine what kind of miracle this hand had created. How did he master such culinary skills? He was only 7 years old. How could he hold a kitchen knife? The latter looked at him lightly and snorted disdainfully, as if to say, "Consider yourself lucky today." Other than Yin Shishir, he had never cooked for anyone else. If Yin Shishir was not at home, even if it was Yin Yecheng, he would not personally cook. Xiao Yichen was still immersed in the deliciousness of the dishes, unable to extricate himself. Happiness. He was so happy that he was about to cry. Compared to the delicacies cooked by Yin Tianyu, the daily recipes in the Mu residence were already boring to him. What Yin Tianyu did was different though. He changed his style. He never followed the prescribed order. Therefore, as long as he was the one cooking day after day, year after year, he would never get tired of it. Xiao Yichen felt that he was done for. It seemed that his younger brother's cooking was very suitable for him. Now that she had fallen in love with this flavor, she was afraid that whatever she ate would be tasteless when she returned to the Mu residence, right? Xiao Yichen's appetite was greatly stimulated. Yin Shishir couldn't help but be surprised. This child's appetite was not bad. He had already finished 2 bowls of rice. She was happy for a moment. She actually forgot about Yin Tianyu, who had not eaten a single grain of rice. Yu sorrowfully felt that he had really fallen out of favor. His mommy only cared about Xiao Yichen and did not care about him. He deliberately did not eat a single mouthful of rice, hoping that his mommy would notice his unhappiness and coax him. He had been staring at her for a long time, but his mommy acted as if she did not see him, and continued to play with Xiao Yichen. Yin Tianyou's eyes were filled with grievance and resentment. They were about to burst out of his eyes. This father-son pair was simply too despicable. They must be doing it on purpose to monopolize mommy. Chapter 687. He hated them the most. Snatching his mommy, Yu meekly called out, "Mommy!" Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a figure move. Yu looked up and saw Muyaja sitting beside him with his palm gently covering his adorable little head. "Are you angry?" Yu turned his face away in a fit of pique and ignored him. Muyaja, however, pinched his chin and forced him to look at him. "Daddy is talking to you. It's impolite to ignore Daddy," Yin Tianyu snorted. "Did I admit that you're my daddy? Don't flatter yourself." He was proud and awkward deep down. His stubbornness was quite similar to his mommy's. "You're shy." "No, I'm not." Yu. Muyaja thought that this lad was really adorable when he was being awkward. "Next time cook for Daddy too, okay?" "No, I'll only cook for mommy. Don't even think about it." Yin Tianyu stuck out his tongue provocatively at him. "Dream on." Muyaja lowered his eyes to look at him. Suddenly, he used a pair of chopsticks to gently pinch the boy's little pink tongue. "Yu, is this man a pervert? Is it fun to tease me like this?" "Interesting." Muyaja seemed to have seen through his thoughts as he commented nonchalantly, "Muyaja, are you a pervert? It's not cute for a child to talk like this. Besides, if I'm a pervert, what are you then?" If he said that he was a pervert, then he was his son. Was he not a little pervert too? In fact, he even suspected that this son of his had a genetic mutation. If not, how could he be so abnormal? Unexpectedly, Yin Tianyu casually replied, "I'm a genius. Unlike you, I'm a genius. You're an old pervert, the most perverted kind." Muyaja retorted, "You're a genius. Don't you have my genes to thank?" "Thank you? If it weren't for your genes, I might have been better." You're so cute. Shouldn't you thank me? Muyaja, open your eyes and look carefully. I obviously inherited more of my mother's beauty. I despise you. You're so smart because you inherited my genes. Then why don't you explain why Mu-i-chen is so stupid? Mu-i-chen, who had been eating quietly at the side, was a little hurt. He felt as if he had been shot while lying down. Muyaja righteously defended his debao. How is he stupid? If you ask him to calculate 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6, he can't wait to count his toes. I'm smart because my mommy taught me well, unlike Mu-i-chen, whose IQ is trampled under his feet every day. Mu-i-chen's pinkish face scrunched up sadly, feeling hurt. The father and son bickered with each other. Muyaja bitterly realized that he thought he had a sharp tongue, but when compared to Yin Tianyu in this aspect, he was nothing. He could only be crushed by Yin Tianyu. There was an old saying, the older the ginger, the spicier it is. Alas, Muyaja was about to cry from the spiciness of Yin Tianyu's tender ginger tongue. Yin Tianyu's sharp-tongued ability was to the max. Muyaja even suspected that the lad's sharp-tongued talent was maxed out when he was just born. Every word he said was mercilessly rebutted by Yin Tianyu. He was invincible. Yin Shirshi's lips twitched as she helplessly said, "Stop fooling around." Chapter 688. Yin Tianyu complained bitterly, "Mommy Yu wants a hug." Yin Shirshi's eyes flickered. Just as she was about to walk toward Yu, Xiaoyi-chen pursed his lips and pretended to cry. "Mommy, Xiaoyi-chen wants a hug too. Mommy, I want a hug." Yu pouted. "Mommy, I want a kiss." Xiaoyi-chen sobbed. Yin Shirshir was a little overwhelmed by this scene. She could not split herself. The two little lads were calling for her. She knew in her heart that Yu was a little resistant to Muyaja and Xiaoyi-chen. It was not his fault though. It was not that Yu was too willful. It was just that, all along, there were only her and Yu in this family. Hence, the children naturally regarded Muyaja and Xiaoyi-chen as intruders. Their hearts were full of repulsion and resistance. This was not what she had hoped for. She wanted the two brothers to get along well. 6 years was neither long nor short, but there was an insurmountable gap between the two children. Mu-i-chen liked this younger brother of his a lot. Yu, however, had sealed off his heart and refused to let anyone in. Yin Shirshir pursed her lips. She had no experience in dealing with this. To her, the two little guys were her favorite. She would protect and dote on both of them. She did not want to be in such a distant situation. Yu blinked his eyes. He had clearly acted coquettishly. If it were in the past, his mommy would definitely hug him in her arms and gently coax him. Now, however, she did not do anything. It was as if she was worried about Xiaoyi-chen. He could not help feeling a little disappointed. The little lad's pink face looked slightly aggrieved. Everything in front of him gradually turned gray, and his eyes quickly filled with tears. He had always thought that he was the most important and irreplaceable person in his mommy's heart. Just like how no one could replace his mommy in his heart. Mommy was the most important. However, why did it seem that he was not the most important person in his mommy's heart? "Mommy, do you not love Yu anymore?" Yu pursed his lips aggrievedly as tears streamed down his face. Mommy is the most important person in Yu's heart, but Mommy doesn't love Yu anymore. Little Munchkin's pink lips were tightly pursed. Even though he was pretending to be stubborn, his little face was still wet with tears. She hurriedly explained, "No, Mommy still loves Yu. It's just..." Her delicate brows furrowed slightly as her gaze fell on little Chen, who was equally at a loss. The latter felt so wrong that his eyes turned red. He loved his younger brother very much too. He could not bear for him to be wronged. He did not mean to compete with his younger brother earlier. He just thought that it was a joke, and that he was just teasing him. On the one hand, he wanted to get closer to Yin Shirshir. His daddy told him that this woman was his dearest mommy, and this child was his biological younger brother. After being separated for 6 years, they finally reunited, but this younger brother of his seemed to have built a tall wall, and did not let them get close to each other. He did not know how to open the door to Yu's heart. What should he do? Xiaoyi-chen walked to Yu's side aggrievedly. His small hand gently pinched the corner of his shirt and tugged at it, trying to get his attention. Yin Tianyu took a step back and distanced himself from him.